The story begins on a sunny day. A boy looks ahead. He sees something that makes him smile widely. A girl with a lovely smile led him to a small settlement and welcomed him to their village. A week ago, on the outskirts of the royal capital, being a veteran mage of almost 30 years, Alfred Reindt, an S-class mage, secluded himself and simply relaxed at home. Suddenly, someone knocked on Al's door and said they were coming in. The boy turned around and recognized Luca's voice. A girl with 2 ponytails stood at his door. She asked if Alfred was still doing nothing. It was Luca, a swordswoman and doctor, an S-class adventurer. Luca exclaimed that Cruz and Urena had already managed to beat the monsters. Alfred said that the guys hadn't changed a bit. They were still as energetic. Luca laughed and asked what Al was talking about. She said he sounded like an old man. The guy asked if he was that old. Suddenly, Luca asked what condition Al's knee was in. The guy lifted his pants leg and said that it hurt, but there was nothing to be done. The girl said the guy was a liar. She said he was too active at the party. Alfred thought she was too perceptive, as expected of a doctor. He thought that this could be called too low compensation. For the young team of heroes that Al belonged to, subduing the Demon King was the end of a long and arduous journey. Alfred distracted the king while the heroes finished him off. When he was about to collapse, he dealt a critical blow to Alfred. Alfred was shot in the knee, and they immediately became heroes. The boy received recognition and medals from the royal family and the Adventurers Guild. He was awarded the first S rank in 200 years. Alfred could not express his gratitude in words. Luca said that the boy's knee would never heal for the rest of his life, and even healing magic would be of no help. The boy hung his head and said that he expected no less from the Demon King's curse. Luca touched the guy's knee, after which he gasped. The girl turned away and told him not to strain himself too much in that case. Alfred wondered if she had come just to laugh at him. The boy took the medicine that Luca placed on the table. He wondered if she had really gone to all that trouble to bring him this medicine. He sighed and laughed, thinking that this was very much like Luca. He fell back onto the bed. Alfred had been an adventurer for many years, and he was sure that he had earned this rest. As he lay on the bed, he thought that his knee hurt. Suddenly, a man burst into the room and exclaimed to Alfred that he wanted to ask the boy something. Alfred immediately stood up and tensed. He assumed it might be the Lord Marshal. The boy loudly asked what was wrong. The man exclaimed that he wanted Alfred to form and lead a magical knightly order. He stated that even though the Demon King had been defeated, there were still many monsters on the loose. He wanted to entrust this to Alfred with his achievements and experience in every sense. The guy thought awkwardly that this was a great honor. He admitted to himself that it would be difficult to fight too often in his condition. He hung his head and said he was grateful and then fell silent. The Lord Marshal understood after a short silence. He said it was unfortunate. Then he exclaimed that he would then like Alfred to train the mages at the royal court. The guy had a pretty bad feeling about this. In the end, the guy was persuaded and came to the party. There, someone recognized him as Lord Reindt himself. Alfred was surprised when he saw the great master of the guild in front of him. The man smiled and said he was going to visit Alfred but couldn't. The boy asked what difference it made. The guild master admitted that he was planning to form a new adventurers guild in the former territory of the Demon King. He wanted Alfred to become the guild leader in every sense. He smiled and suggested that they discuss everything thoroughly. For most of the rest of the evening, a lot of people came up to the guy and said something. Alfred thought about how bad it was. At the end of the evening, Alfred returned home. As soon as he entered the house, he fell onto the bed. His knee was in terrible pain by this point. He rolled on the floor and thought about how he wouldn't be allowed to rest here. He didn't know that S rank would be such a problem. He had promised the king and the country many things, but this was already beyond the limits, and his recovery was more important than these matters. He was lying on the floor and trying to figure out how to rest. The guy spent a lot of time thinking about it, and he didn't even notice how dawn came. The next morning, the boy was sitting on his bed getting ready. He took his bag and left the house. Alfred was about to leave the royal capital. After a night of thinking, he realized that even if he took a vacation, there would be a fuss around him. He decided that everything would be fine if he just took the guild's quest. There are 3 criteria by which he chooses a task. First, the task must look easy. Second, the task must be from a village that is as far away from the capital as possible. And third, it must take a long time. When Alfred found a suitable assignment for him, he went to the reception desk and reported it. The girl smiled and looked at the assignment, then asked in shock if this was really what he wanted to accept. It was a rank F quest that was meant for the respective adventurers. The quest stated that they were looking for guards for the village. They had problems with wild boars and wolves who were constantly attacking. The adventurers were rewarded with food and shelter. Alfred exclaimed that this was what he needed. The girl turned away and said that it was early morning and she was alone there and perhaps she should consult with her superiors. Alfred exclaimed that everything was fine and it was urgent. The girl had to agree, which pleased the guy. The reward is small, but he doesn't care. Even if he does nothing, he will receive benefits because he now has a rank. He thought he was going to enjoy the simple country life. So a week passed and Alfred got to his destination. He got out of the transport and thought that he would have to walk the rest of the way. It was bad for his knee, but as long as he walked slowly, he could bear it. The boy was happy. It was wonderful weather for a walk. After 3 hours of walking through the forest, Alfred noticed that there was nothing there, only trees. Suddenly, he heard loud sounds. He immediately realized that these were the sounds of an animal and a man. Alfred immediately went in that direction, thinking that it didn't sound very good. Suddenly, he heard a girl screaming loudly that she was not going to give up so easily. Watching this from the side, the guy saw the girl had incredibly beautiful pointed ears. The girl held her own against the wolf. She was an elf. The boy thought she looked brave, but her knees were shaking. Suddenly, a certain smell reached the wolf that was attacking the elf. The monster immediately turned to Alfred and began to bark loudly. The boy thought that he seemed to have interested the wolf. He stepped forward and declared that he could handle the monster. Alfred thought that such enemies could be dealt with even without magic. The monster quickly rushed towards the guy to attack, but Alfred grabbed the wolf by the jaw and slammed it into the ground. The wolf got scared and then ran away from there in fear. Suddenly, Alfred heard the girl's voice. She thanked the guy for his help. Alfred said that everything was fine. He asked how she was. The girl exclaimed that she was fine. Suddenly, the elf said that her name was not you, but Millet. Alfred immediately apologized to the girl. After that, he introduced himself. Millet smiled broadly and thanked Al. The guy was a little surprised. He had been an adventurer for many years and he was used to hearing words of gratitude. These are the words that bring him pleasure. Alfred smiled broadly and said he was glad to hear that. After that, the boy asked what Millet was doing alone in such a dangerous place. The girl confessed that her younger sister had a fever and it seemed to be causing her a lot of pain. The village had run out of medicine, so she came to collect some medicinal herbs. The guy understood her. Millet wanted to tell something else, but Alfred interrupted her and said that it may not look like it, but in fact he is a doctor. The girl said that everyone in the village had said that it was dangerous and that wolves would appear there, but if Millet did not cure his sister, it would be very bad. Alfred asked if this meant that the girl was gathering herbs. Millet said that was not so. There were a lot of wolves this year, so she should not have come to this place. Everything there had already been eaten by wolves and monsters. Alfred asked if that meant it was useless. Suddenly the girl said she was sure that if she went deeper into the mountains, she would find something. Alfred asked, amazed, if she was really going to go up there alone. The boy thought it was terrible. Even though it was summer, it was already well past noon. Alfred was not so callous as to leave the brave Millet alone. But if he helped her, he wouldn't make it in time because the gates to the village would be closed at sunset. The guy didn't want to sleep outside at all. However, if they separated in this place, the girl could be eaten and Alfred's conscience simply couldn't allow that. Millet was about to leave when Alfred suddenly called out to her and asked permission to help her search for herbs. The girl was surprised. Alfred smiled and said that he was in no hurry and it would be more comfortable with an adult. Hearing this, Millet smiled widely and thanked Alfred for this. The guy said that if she could, she should just tell him where these herbs grow. Suddenly, Millet caught him by the hands and led him away. Alfred told her that she shouldn't be in such a hurry. He thought the elf looked happy. The girl said that plants grow abundantly in this place. But in fact, there was no herbal smell at all. The guy asked what he should look for. Millet said to look for green ivy. It resembles the shape of a hand. Millet was upset, thinking that even here all the herbs had been eaten. Alfred asked if there were other places to go. The girl sat down on the floor and said that there was a cave 30 minutes from this place, but there was one but. The guy asked what could be wrong. Millet looked downcast and said that the problem was that a basilisk had recently taken up residence in the cave. Alfred was surprised. The demonic beast basilisk is a B-rank monster. Anyone who looks at it turns to stone. Its tail and blood are incredibly poisonous. If it is cut, the blood will splatter all around, which will be a complete disaster. Alfred thought that a B-rank group should be able to defeat the monster one way or another. The boy told the upset Millet not to be afraid, stating that an old man like him was simply incredible at exterminating basilisks. Millet was very surprised and grabbed the guy. She started screaming that it was very dangerous and that it was not an enemy that could be defeated so easily. Alfred said that everything was fine and he would defeat him. When Alfred approached the entrance to the cave, he asked if Millet smelled the same herbs as he did. The girl confirmed it. The boy took the herb basket from Millet's hands and told her to wait for him outside. The girl was taken aback. Alfred smiled and said that everything was fine, and if something happened, she should scream and he would immediately run to her. The girl looked at him tensely and was silent. Alfred walked through a dark and deep cave. He noticed that no one had touched the plants there because there were so many of them. While the boy was collecting herbs, he heard sounds behind him and stopped. A figure of a huge snake appeared behind Alfred. The guy realized that the basilisk had appeared. The monster stood right behind the guy and waited for Alfred to turn around. The basilisk tried to attack the boy with its tail, but Alfred quickly repelled the attack. He created a magic circle which he used to protect himself from the monster. While the magic circle protected Alfred from attacks, the boy calmly continued collecting medicinal herbs. Having collected a few plants, the boy wondered if this would be enough. He took a small stone from the ground and said that there was nothing personal here. He clenched the stone in his fist and began to gather magical power. He said that he was going to enjoy the monster's defeat. Noticing this, Basilisk became afraid. He tried to attack the guy again, who was already ready to attack, a small stone enchanted with speed magic. Alfred threw a rock at the monster's head, after which it quickly flew through it, leaving a hole in the basilisk's head. The guy thought that it was overconfident because the last time he fought with basilisks was a very long time ago. Alfred thought that he really didn't want to dirty the cave because of his clumsiness. After all, it is in this cave that the herbs will grow year after year. When the boy went outside, he saw Millet sitting on the ground and waiting for him. The girl kept turning back in fear. Suddenly, she heard someone calling her. She immediately looked up and saw Alfred calling her to him. Millet approached him and began asking if he was okay. The guy confirmed this and handed the girl a basket of herbs. The girl took the basket and smiled broadly, after which she thanked Alfred for his help. Alfred then pulled out the basilisk's head. He apologized and then said that he was going to get the body out of there, so he needed her help. Millet couldn't believe that Alfred had actually defeated the basilisk. The boy asked in surprise what was so special about it. The girl looked at him in amazement, saying that it was amazing. She said admiringly that Al was really strong and he was also an expert in exterminating basilisks. The guy looked at the girl in a stupor as she continued to say how amazing he was. While Millet was talking about how strong Alfred was, the boy covered his face with his hand, thinking that this was terribly awkward. The girl reached for her cape and said that if Alfred was going to cut the monster, then she could help one way or another if needed. She took off her cloak, leaving only a small jacket on her upper body. Alfred was shocked. He immediately turned away and tried to justify himself, thinking that he did not do it on purpose and they just caught their eye. Alfred sighed and said that the monster was quite big and then asked what Millet thought about it. The girl also added that it was also incredibly heavy. After that, Alfred took out his dagger and began to deal with the monster's body. Together, they began to work hard. Started with his tail, fangs, and eyeballs. They could sell for a high price. His blood can be used as an ingredient for medicine. The skin is also useful and the meat is edible. There was no waste from the basilisk. Together, they finished the hard work. Alfred exclaimed that Millet had helped him a lot. The joyful children joined hands. By this time, it was already evening. Alfred said that the sun was already beginning to set, so they should set up camp near the cave. Millet was a little nervous but agreed to the proposal. Alfred noticed, worried about the girls, and asked what was the matter. Millet tensed up and said that everything was fine. Suddenly, a sound was heard from behind the trees not far from the boys. Hearing this, Millet screamed loudly and grabbed Alfred. When the girl realized what she had done, she blushed deeply. At that very moment, the guy looked at her in slight bewilderment. Millet immediately turned away from Alfred and exclaimed that she was simply afraid of the night forest. Hearing this, Millet simply could not help but smile. He told the girl that she should not be afraid because he would protect his lady Millet. He asked her not to worry too much. Millet began to doubt. The girl blushed. By nightfall, the boys had successfully set up camp. They kept food over the fire. While Millet drank water in silence, Alfred was thinking about something, looking into the void. The guy asked if Millet was okay. The girl said that she had borrowed the guy's coat and that she was fine. After all, it was warm outside. Alfred thought about how the darkness of the night sky was growing thicker and thicker. The guy asked if Millet was hungry. He asked her if she wanted to eat some fried cheese. The girl said she was fine. She thanked Alfred for the offer. While the guy was eating something, Millet started rubbing her eyes. The guy asked if she was falling asleep. The girl said that she couldn't sleep because it was a little weird. Alfred assumed that she was not used to sleeping on the street. Suddenly, the girl asked Alfred why he was in this place. He did not understand her question. She reminded him of how she had been attacked by wolves. Alfred said that he was on his way to the village where he had accepted the mission. The girl said she understood. After that, there was silence again. The girl asked if everything would be okay with the assignment since he was late. Alfred said that there seemed to be no time limit on the mission. Millet was excited and asked where he was going, and if it wasn't far, she could walk him there. The boy said that this place was called the village of Murg. He asked if Millet knew about this place. The girl happily said that this was her village. Alfred was surprised. He felt better because it seemed that from now on his village life would be easier. The girl asked if this meant that Alfred would be living in their village for some time. The guy confirmed it. After that, they fell silent again. Millet looked at Alfred and laughed quietly. The guy noticed this. He was sure that being a guard wouldn't be so bad, a job where he could protect people's smiles. He was going to enjoy this life, taking this carelessness into his soul. Alfred is a veteran sorcerer who repaired the Demon King. However, at the last moment, he was shot by the immortal striking arrow. Fearing for his own life, he decided to take a rest. But the aristocracy and high society could not leave him. Therefore, he was forced to leave the royal capital. He chose a rest worthy of him as the village's protector. Thanks to Millet, he was able to reach the village without incident. After he entered the village gates, Alfred commented on what a nice place it was. Millet thanked him and said she was sure Alfred would soon get used to it. Noticing that Millet had returned, the villagers rejoiced and ran to the girl, asking how she was. Millet apologized for worrying them. The kids who came to Millet asked who the guy was behind her. Millet called everyone's attention loudly and said that this person was Alfred. She stated that he was very strong and kind and that he had saved her earlier. While Alfred listened to the girl in amazement, she told him that he helped her collect a special kind of herbs and that he also looked after her all night without closing his eyes. The boy began to feel shy. He wanted to stop Millet, but she continued, exclaiming with delight that Alfred had defeated the basilisk. The villagers were also very surprised by this. Everyone started shouting about how great Alfred was. Many residents began to approach the guy and thank him for what he did. They noticed that he was quite a strong young man. After that, Millet ran forward. She waved her hand at Alfred and said that she needed to prepare the medicine. A middle-aged man with cat ears came out to Alfred and said that he had heard a lot about the guy. It was the village chief. Alfred quickly apologized and said that he had to introduce himself. He bowed and said that he had taken on the duty of guardian of the village of Murg. He said his name was Alfred Reint. The villagers became quiet when they heard this. The boy began to get nervous, but the villagers quickly exclaimed that there would be a party in honor of Alfred's arrival. The boy was taken aback, not understanding what was happening. The village chief said that he would take Alfred to the residence they had prepared for him. The man led Alfred to a dilapidated house. He apologized for the state of the house, but it was the guard's home. Alfred said it was fine and he liked it. After Alfred entered the house, he thought that the house was indeed old, but at least it had a roof and even a bed. Alfred asked the village chief to explain the details of his work. The man agreed and placed a chair in front of him. He told Alfred to enjoy the sun while he just sat in front of the gate on a chair. The boy was surprised. The old man said that the guy's main job is to prevent enemy invasions from outside, but they just don't have that many enemies. Alfred wondered if a guard was needed here. According to the head, the boy will be useful, helping out on farms during the day. And when the residents decide to go outside the village, he will protect them from both bandits and wolves. The leader said that the chance to participate in the battle was extremely small. Alfred smiled and said that he could help them. The old man became nervous. He said that Alfred looked like a veteran and he must be frustrated with such tasks. The boy immediately objected and said that it was not so at all. The old man said that the villagers, like himself, were expecting to see a young man, so he was a little surprised. Alfred realized that they just wanted a young boy, and that was the reason they reacted the way they did. The old man decided to give Alfred a tour of the village. Alfred realized that the villagers' plan was to invite the young man and marry him to one of the girls who had reached marriageable age and force him to move in permanently. However, the young adventurers would not accept such tasks. The chief asked why Alfred decided to become a guard. The boy said that in the past he had injured his knee. The old man said that in that case Alfred could relax in the local hot springs because it helps to heal the wounds. That same night there was a party at the village chief's house. Everyone drank and rejoiced until late at night. When Alfred was already in his room and trying to fall asleep, he couldn't get rid of the loud sounds. He realized that the wolves were approaching. Alfred stood up, thinking that it would be bad if the village suffered on his first day. He braced himself, thinking that first impressions mattered. He had to deal with the problem before the villagers decided he was a loser. He got out of the house and ran into the street, where he saw something he didn't expect at all. Alfred was amazed to see a beautiful magical wolf standing in front of him. Alfred may be a veteran, but he has never seen such a beautiful wolf before. Among the ancient magical beasts, there are some that can use magic. The wolf rushed forward and growled loudly, attacking Alfred with magic. The boy covered his face with his hands. It was a magical howl. A simple adventurer would have been paralyzed. The wolf tried to attack again, but Alfred grabbed him by the muzzle and slammed him into the ground, then kicked him. Many wolves continued to attack the boy, but he dodged and defeated them without any problems. He thought they were magical, but this huge wolf was their leader, and he was the only one who could use magic. Judging by the number of these wolves, there were about 20 of them. There was no end to them. They obeyed their leader. He headed towards the leader. The guy decided that if he used thunder fire here, he could cause a fire, but he couldn't handle water. He decided that what he did was the best option. Alfred attacks them using accelerated magical barriers. After the attack, the boy was very surprised that the wolf was able to dodge. In an instant, the wolf was behind Alfred. Alfred said it wasn't bad at all. He smiled predatorily and turned back. He started to attack him, thinking that this was quite funny. He used his magic again. He hit the monster in the stomach with a powerful attack. The wolf couldn't withstand this attack and flew back. He rolled backwards head over heels. Alfred said that he would be happy to kill them all, but if they left the village of Murg alone, he would let them leave alive. This beast was strong enough to use magic, so it was normal for it to understand human speech. Alfred exclaimed that he was a sorcerer, and if he had used the maximum of his powers from the very beginning, all of the wolf's followers would be dead now. He said that he could exterminate them all, but if he did that, the wild animal population would increase and they would start to devastate the fields. So he lets the wolf and his pack go. Besides, he decided that it would be a waste of time to kill everyone. He just wanted the wolf to listen to him. Suddenly, the monster stood up. Suddenly, Alfred heard the wolf say that he understood everything, after which he called the boy a powerful child. The boy realized that this was telepathy and was surprised that the wolf was capable of such a thing. The wolf admitted that it was his mistake. Alfred was surprised by such obedience. The wolf was upset that even he could not make Alfred be more serious. The boy stopped the wolf and said that he respected his strength and wisdom as a magical beast. He said that his name was Alfred Wright. The wolf said that he didn't have a name and then asked Alfred to give him one. The boy thought for a moment, then said that he wanted to name the wolf Gilgil. The wolf turned pale. The boy thought that this was not it, after which he suggested Puffy. The wolf began to lose patience and get angry. He noticed that the animal showed no hostility and decided that he liked it. The wolf said that he would now be called Femi. As long as he was the alpha, he swore that they would not attack the village of Murg. He said he was doing it as an apology for disturbing Alfred's men. The boy said that he was happy about that. He thought that the villagers were scared and needed something to calm them down. Femi asked if the boy really wanted the wolf's head as a trophy. Alfred turned pale, after which the wolf said he was joking. Suddenly the wolf spat something out. Alfred picked up a sharp object from the ground. Femi said that if the boy showed it to those people, they would understand. Alfred lay in his bed and thought that that magical wolf was not bad. His size and strength were astonishing, and he was also intelligent. Femi's skin shimmered beautifully golden in the moonlight. Besides this, Alfred thought that she was soft. The boy felt something on himself and thought that it was pleasant, and that this is exactly how it should be if he touched a wolf. Suddenly, he felt his whole face getting wet. The guy jumped out of bed and wondered what it was. Femi was sitting right in front of him. The boy fell down and asked what was going on. The wolf used telepathy again to say that it was rude. The boy got scared. He asked if this wolf was the same magical wolf Femi. The wolf confirmed it. Alfred was surprised that Femi could become small. The wolf wagged his tail proudly and said that it was something like that, and it was very nice. He wanted to tell him the reason why he came back here, but Alfred started petting Femi. The guy said that he really wanted to touch him because Femi was very soft. The wolf got angry and told the boy not to treat him like a dog. The boy ran his hands over the wolf's body and noticed that he was incredibly thin. The wolf said that he had a request. Alfred understood that he himself said that in case of any concerns, the wolf could turn to him. However, he did not expect that Femi would approach him that same day, especially since the wolf had spent a lot of effort to change form, but a promise was a promise. He asked what Femi's request was. The wolf said that it pained him to talk about it, but although this place used to be the domain of magical wolves, now everything has changed. After the previous wolf king died, the wild boars began to attack actively, and the magical wolves were forced to leave. Alfred realized why the previous generation of Femis had called this land home. Femi, who had become the king of the magical wolves, led a group to fight them, but surprisingly the main magical boar was strong. And they can no longer feed on those lands. Alfred understood why Femi was so thin. The wolf drooped. The boy realized that it seemed wrong to call them thin. The wolf said that this was the reason they decided to attack the village, but Alfred stopped them. The guy said that he was just lucky. Wolf said it was a race against time. Femi said he wanted Alfred to share his power with Femi and the others. The guy covered his face with his hand and said that he didn't mind, but he couldn't imagine a magical wolf losing to some wild boar. Femi exclaimed that they were very strong. Alfred agreed. He was thinking about how cute this wolf was. Femi said that Alfred himself was unable to sense Femi's presence, which suggests that Alfred's ability to sense presence is just like a plant's. The boy was shocked, but there was a reason for that, because he did not sense the pack's intentions to kill. The boy said that he had no choice but to accept the wolf's offer. Femi said happily that it was very proud of Alfred. The guy left the room and said that it was late and he was going to bed. He told the wolf to bring him to the wild boars the next day. Suddenly, Femi thanked Alfred, which surprised the guy quite a bit. The boy turned and said goodbye to Femi. He thought that this wolf was very understanding. Alfred lay back down in bed, but it was cramped because Femi lay down with him. The boy thought it didn't matter. He asked why wild boars were so strong. Femi didn't know himself. Alfred was reminded of the shock he had shown Femi's fang to everyone. The wolf was not surprised. The boy said that he heard this from the head of the village when he showed his fang. But he wondered if Femi really recognized Alfred as his master. The wolf was surprised by this question. He started to cuddle silently. The guy said that Femi was acting like a dog again. He wanted the wolf to just stop doing it. The next morning, Femi was licking Alfred's face, trying to wake the boy up. Suddenly, someone asked the guy if he was awake. Alfred greeted Millet, who stood at his door. The girl wished him good morning. She also said that she brought him breakfast. Alfred thanked her and said that he would definitely not die of hunger. Suddenly, the guy noticed that Femi began to spin around at Millet's feet. The girl laughed and said how adorable it was. She hugged Fem and said she was sure her little sister would be happy to see him. Alfred said that the wolf's name was Fem. The girl asked if he had adopted the animal. The guy said that it might seem so, but in fact it was the king of the magical wolves. Millet was very surprised. Alfred tensed up because he thought he had scared the girl. After that, Femi used telepathy and introduced himself. Millet exclaimed in amazement that this couldn't be, and the wolf spoke. The girl began to stroke Fem. She said the wolf was amazing. She continued to shower him with compliments. Alfred thought that everything was fine since Millet was happy. After breakfast, at the request of the king of magical wolves, Alfred told the head of the village that he wanted to tame the magical boar. The villagers made Alfred try hard because they wanted to eat wild boar meat. They said they would wait for him. When Alfred left the village, he asked Femi where they should go. The wolf led the boy along the path. Suddenly, Femi stopped. He began to increase in size, returning to his usual form. Alfred touched the wolf's fur and said that Femi was incredible after all. The wolf wagged its tail proudly, creating a strong wind pressure. Alfred said that he had been thinking about it a lot lately, but he wondered if it was true that the previous king of the magical wolves was the one who fought against the heroes 3 years ago. Femi said that was not true and the previous king was his son. Alfred was delighted and said that this meant that Femi was the grandson of the king of the magical wolves. He admired it, but suddenly he felt pain. Femi asked what it was. Noticing that Alfred was holding his leg, he asked if his knee hurt. Alfred admitted that something had happened during his fight with the Demon King. Hearing this, Femi looked at Alfred in amazement. The guy said that it would be great if Femi didn't slow down. Suddenly, the wolf asked the guy if he wanted to ride him. The wolf awkwardly said that it wasn't that he let people ride on his back, it was just that since he was one of the people responsible for this application, he wanted to do something. Alfred thanked Femi and said that he was his savior. He quickly sat on the wolf's back. Femi was surprised. Alfred asked what was wrong. Femi laughed a little awkwardly and said that everything was fine. Immediately after that, they ran forward. Alfred noted that Femi was very fast. After a while, they arrived at their destination. Alfred asked what this place was because they were right in front of a terrible wasteland. Alfred said he didn't think there were any wild boars there, but there were some tracks. Femi said it was just for now. He asked if Alfred was ready. Suddenly, the wolf raised his head and growled loudly straight into the ground. Alfred covered his ears with his hands and said it was too loud. Femi apologized and said he just had to wait a little while. Suddenly, Alfred felt someone's strong presence. The next moment, a huge body rose from the ground. Femi and Alfred watched in amazement as the wasteland began to rise. It turned out to be the magical boar, and it was far from being in a good mood. Femi was also excited. He said that he knew about it, and it was amazing for both of them. The wolf seemed quite energetic when he decided to remind Alfred that earlier he had said that Femi did not have the slightest chance. The guy asked in surprise what this wolf was happy about. The boy lunged forward with a quick jerk. Alfred has his own rule, which is not to commit senseless murders. However, this creature was absolutely enormous, and this area became a wasteland only because this creature had absorbed all living things that were in this territory, including herself. If this continues, sooner or later the forest will simply be destroyed. When Alfred managed to get close enough to the monster, it suddenly opened its mouth, from which came a disgusting smell. The boy immediately went into a stupor and covered his nose and face with his hands, trying not to inhale it. He fell to the ground because of how strong the smell was. Fem also covered her nose with her paws. They didn't understand what it was. After Alfred was on Femi's back, they started running away together. The wolf tried to explain in a hurry that the boar was poisonous, which meant that its breath was poisonous as well. Alfred covered his nose with his hands as he spoke about how Femi should have been told about something like this a little earlier. He looked back at the monster in a small turn. The guy felt bad. Femi shouted that he knew about it, and it was definitely true. At this point, the wolf looked quite happy, and Alfred noticed this strange behavior again. He asked Femi why he looked so happy. While Femi and Alfred circled around the monster, trying to avoid that terrifying breath, the guy was confidently thinking that such a monster simply could not be left alive. He created a fairly large magic circle, which he aimed at the magical boar. He thought that showing a small part of its true power would be enough for this. Once all the preparations for his spell were complete, Alfred let out a loud scream, releasing magical power as he did so. A huge blast magic was directed at the monster in a large wave. In an instant, blood splattered all over the area and the boar stopped in one place. A shocked Femi, who had been watching the whole thing, looked at the smoke cloud and asked Alfred if the guy had killed the monster. The guy tensed up and told Femi not to say anything before it was necessary. After this attack, the boar fell behind Alfred. It was dead. The guy adjusted his clothes and said that it was easy enough to kill the monster without worrying about the surroundings. He also added that he was extremely glad that he was able to kill this monster with just one blow. Alfred exhaled. He turned around and thoughtfully remembered that earlier the villagers had told him that they expected some wild boar meat from him, but Alfred would be surprised if this monster was even edible. In response to these thoughts, Femi calmly said that this boar was edible. He told that even poisonous snakes have meat that is not covered in poison. Alfred asked in surprise if this was true. Suddenly, Alfred noticed that quite a few wolves had appeared around him. He turned around and exclaimed in amazement. In response to this, Femi only said that it was his pack. As many wolves began to come and eat the boar's body, the boy suggested that they must have come to eat meat. Alfred had long since noticed that both Femi and his pack looked very thin. The guy cut a small piece of meat from a dead boar. Then he went up to Femi and said that they could eat the rest. The wolf asked, amazed, if Alfred was serious. The boy confirmed this and wished the pack a bon appetit. After these words, many wolves howled gratefully to Alfred and began to eat the meat. The guy liked to watch how the satisfied wolves were eating tasty meat. Thus, Alfred successfully fulfilled Femi's order. The satisfied guy was extremely happy with this turn of events. The villagers were extremely happy with the meat. Alfred even volunteered to share the meat with all the villagers. The head of the small village was very shocked by the sight of the giant tusk that Alfred gave him. Millet continued to exclaim how incredible it was. The girl was in a really good mood on this wonderful day. The children of the village were genuinely delighted and occupied with Femi. They stroked the wolf's soft fur and commented on how fluffy he was. Femi himself sincerely enjoyed this, but tried to maintain his pride and keep his head up. The girl was holding a small plate. She asked if Alfred wanted to have lunch with them as well as with Fem and Colette. The guy smiled broadly and said that it sounded quite good. He offered the girl to fry some meat. As they walked forward, Alfred asked how Millet's little sister was doing. The girl said that everything was fine and all thanks to Alfred. Millet was still worried and made her sister sleep a lot. Millet entered Colette's room and told her sister that they had a guest. Alfred followed the girl in. He walked up to the bed where the little girl was lying and said he was very pleased to meet her. The boy said he must have woken up the sleeping girl. Colette rubbed her eyes and, half asleep, asked Alfred who he was. Suddenly she jumped up and said that he must be that Mr. Alfred. She asked if she was right. The guy was taken aback. Millet said that she had previously told Colette that she had been saved thanks to Alfred's help. Millet smiled and said again that she was very grateful to Alfred for everything he had done for her and the village. The girl turned to Colette and told the girl to stay in bed until the food was ready. The girl agreed. Alfred supported Millet and said that Colette did not want to get sick again. The girl confirmed this. From the kitchen, Millet said that she would call them when everything was ready. Suddenly, the happy girl saw Femi and admiringly said how cute this animal looked. She began to stroke the wolf's soft fur. Colette smiled broadly and said that Femi was very big and fluffy. At this time, the wolf sat contentedly and obediently next to the girl. The girl turned to Alfred and sincerely thanked him for coming to visit them. Alfred said that he was glad that he was able to meet sweet Colette. The girl laughed and agreed with Alfred's words. She looked at the boy and asked if she could whisper something in his ear. The boy was a little surprised, but he came up to her. At that moment, Colette kissed the guy on the cheek. The girl laughed and said that this was her gratitude for Alfred. The boy was taken aback and covered his cheek with his hand. He thanked Colette. At this time, Femi did not take his suspicious gaze off his master. The guy sat down on the floor next to the girl's bed. After that, Colette asked what Alfred thought about her little sister. Alfred was a little taken aback. He wondered why she was asking this. Colette had said with confidence that Millet's sister, as Alfred himself could see, was simply an amazing girl. She said that Millet's cooking was very tasty, and the girl was extremely kind and skilled in everything, like washing and the like. Colette also added that after their father's death, Millet became a doctor in order to take care of her sister. The girl stated that there are a whole bunch of guys who want to marry Millet. Alfred said that the girl seemed quite popular. Colette confirmed this. Colette's eyes lit up and she asked if Alfred liked Millet. The boy remarked that he had never thought of her like that before, so he didn't know what to say. Suddenly, Colette said that she was sure that her little sister liked Alfred. The girl meant that Millet behaved so sweetly when he talked to Alfred. The girl smiled and said that this was the reason why she wanted Alfred to marry Millet. Colette said that the guy might not make a decision right now, but he should think about it. Colette said that it would be a shared secret, to which Alfred agreed. Millet came into the room and said that everything was ready. The girl asked curiously what they were talking about. In response, Colette said that they were not talking about anything. Colette hugged Millet. The girl asked if her little sister knew about what she was curious about. Colette just laughed. Towards evening, they all sat at the table and ate. Alfred tasted the food and said it was very tasty. Millet thanked him for the compliment and said that a dinner like this was only possible thanks to Alfred. Colette asked if the wild boar was really as big as a bull. Alfred said it wasn't, and it was much bigger, even bigger than the house. Colette spoke admiringly about how amazing Alfred was. The guy said that if Colette had been there, he would have even given her a job as a security guard. Millet looked worried. The girl said that the damage caused by animals had definitely increased, but she had never heard of such a large boar before. The girl admitted that it was really scary to hear that. Femi told Millet not to worry, as Alfred had already defeated the giant magical boar for them. He said that they would catch the remaining monsters so that they would not harm the humans anymore. Colette hugged Fem and told her again that he was amazing. Millet exclaimed that the girl hadn't finished her food yet. Millet said she was confident everything would be fine. After all, Alfred will protect them. She also added that Femi will help them too. Hearing this, the guy smiled. He confidently stated that they could rely on them. Meanwhile, both the magical wolves and the magical boar no longer posed a threat to the village. The next day, Alfred was going to visit the hot springs and relax. However, the image of that huge wild boar would not leave Alfred's head, making the boy worry about something. Alfred yawned loudly, causing tears to appear in his eyes. The tired boy sat on a chair and kept the village together while Femi lay next to him and slept. The guy thought that although he had chosen a comfortable job as a guard when he had no threats in the area, he had too much free time. The guy looked at Femi and laughed, then said that even the king of the magical wolves himself had relaxed. Suddenly Femi opened his eyes and said with displeasure that he was actually not sleeping. Not to mention the forest, there was a giant magical boar nearby that could even put the king of magical wolves to shame. If the boar had migrated to this area from somewhere else, people would definitely be talking about it. The guy asked if it could be some kind of magic or curse that could make magical beasts grow. As night fell, Alfred and Femi slept peacefully in their house. Suddenly, the wolf sensed something was wrong. He jumped up and woke the boy. He warned him that someone was approaching the village. Alfred was surprised and said that he didn't feel anything. Suddenly, the guy himself felt something that hit him in the head. He began to quickly get up from the bed. He told Femi that he expected nothing less from the wolf because his perception was much higher than anyone else's. Alfred wondered who it was this time. Accompanied by Fem, Alfred walked out into the street. He thought that although he felt no intent to kill, it was strange. He didn't understand why anyone would walk around in such a remote area in the middle of the night. Suddenly, the boy heard the sound of heels. He looked around in amazement. Right in front of the guy stood a girl who loudly exclaimed that it really was Alfred. The guy was amazed. He asked a strange girl who she was. The stranger got angry and said that forgetting who she was unforgivable on his part. The girl folded her arms and exclaimed in displeasure that she was one of the 4 heavenly kings of the Demon King's army, and her name was Vivi. Alfred looked at the proud girl in amazement. He still had no idea who she was. Alfred thought that even if what she said was true, he still didn't remember her. Alfred told the girl that if she was one of the 4 heavenly kings of the Demon King's army, then they, the hero team, should have defeated them all. The girl exclaimed that there were actually 5 kings. Alfred asked incredulously if this was really true. He knew that something clearly didn't add up. The boy understood that this girl was definitely a demon, but she was a completely ordinary demon who simply thought that she was one of the 4 heavenly kings of the Demon King's army. Alfred looked at the girl with distrust and asked why she was in a rural area like this. Vivi asked angrily what was with his gaze. She exclaimed that he was only pretending not to know what he had done. Alfred began to get irritated because the girl looked like a rather angry person. The guy scratched his head and asked if he had done something. Vivi became even more angry and repeated his words, after which she exclaimed that this was not just something. With tears in her eyes, the girl said that she had raised and educated her boar, and Alfred had simply killed it. She did not understand how the boy dared to behave in such a way. As Alfred looked at the girl in shock, Vivi exclaimed that he shouldn't even dare to say that he had forgotten it. Hearing this, Alfred got angry and pointed his finger at the girl and said that it was all her fault. Hearing these accusations, Vivi was taken aback. The girl was shocked and said that actually she should be angry. Alfred shouted at her to shut her mouth because by enlarging this boar she had broken the ecosystem and everyone was in danger. The girl sighed heavily, then raised her hand with the spell and exclaimed that she simply did not need to worry about the problems of ordinary people. She declared that now Alfred would disappear from the face of the earth. The boy tensed up and raised his hands to protect himself. At that moment, he noticed that Vivi was using a spell. Covering his eyes, he thought that nothing less could be expected from the demon. He noted that Vivi had simply enormous magical power. Alfred also thought that only an amateur would recite a long spell right in front of the enemy. The boy rushed to run straight at Vivi, who stood motionless and read the spell. The boy screamed loudly. Noticing this, the girl was taken aback and did not understand what was happening. The next moment, Alfred knocked Vivi off her feet, after which the girl flew back. Lying on the ground, she asked why he did it. She cried and said that she was absolutely sure that Alfred was a wizard. The guy said that breaking spells is the basis of the basics. The guy hit Vivi and said that she had the courage to show herself even after causing so much trouble to ordinary people. He said that he would knock some sense into her. The girl screamed in fear. Suddenly, Alfred stopped. Vivi cried loudly, causing her feelings to create a fireball. Alfred quickly dodged the sudden attack, but he was also surprised. The fireball flew behind Alfred and landed right in the boy's hut. Alfred screamed loudly, not understanding what it was. He wanted to put out the fire with fire magic. After he got rid of the danger, he turned to Vivi threateningly and told her not to even think that he could let her go so easily after this. The girl wanted to say that it wasn't on purpose, but at that very moment Femi caught her by the leg and began shaking the demons from side to side. Alfred noticed that Femi was not holding back at all, even despite the girl's crying. The boy said in surprise that the king of magical wolves never ceases to amaze him. At this time, Vivi asked in amazement why he praised Femi. As Femi continued to swing Vivi in all directions, the girl screamed at the wolf to stop. Calmly watching this, Alfred asked if the girl realized her mistake. Vivi screamed loudly that she understood everything. Only after these words did Alfred tell the wolf that it was enough. Immediately after that, Femi calmly threw the girl to the ground. Vivi started to feel the ground, thinking only that it was very scary. Alfred told the girl to stretch her hands to him. Vivi obediently did what the boy ordered her to do. Immediately after that, Alfred used magic to create handcuffs on the demon's hands, which constrained her actions. The guy closed the girl's eyes, then led her to the barn. He threw her to the end of the room. Vivi asked what he planned to do with her, bringing her to this barn. The girl crawled around the floor in displeasure and screamed that even if he used her body, he shouldn't think that he could get her heart too. Alfred just watched her silently. Suddenly his gaze fell on the huge hole in the ceiling that appeared because of the fireball. The guy said out loud that everything was visible from here. Vivi misunderstood and asked what he was looking at. She assumed he was looking at her where he shouldn't. Vivi asked him to stop. The girl said that for one of the 4 heavenly kings of the Demon King's army like her, being humiliated as if she were some second-class person was unforgivable. But Vivi wasn't going to give up. She said she wouldn't lose. Femi said that this girl was a weirdo. Together they watched her in silence. Vivi lived in her own little world. Alfred sighed heavily, thinking about how troublesome Vivi was. He lifted the blindfold from the girl's eyes and said that he had absolutely no intention of doing anything like that to her. In response to this, Vivi exclaimed that he was deceiving her. She told him not to touch her. The guy tried to calm the girl down, but she was restless. When Alfred got tired, he sighed and told Vivi to do whatever she wanted, but the roof she set on fire had to be repaired. The guy thought that now should be the most important part because he should interrogate her harshly to find out the girl's motives. Vivi was lying on the floor tied up. The boy looked at her sternly and asked why she had enlarged the magical boar. In response, the girl said that she had no reason to tell Alfred about it. She laughed and said that if he knew about her plans, he would definitely be horrified. Alfred just remained silent. Vivi continued with a cruel smile and said that the enlargement of the magical boar was just simple training. The girl said that she was eventually targeting a dragon, and when it grew up, the magical boars would be excellent food for it. She said that it would be a double benefit for her. Alfred and Femi thought that Vivi wasn't the smartest person because she told them everything so easily. The guy thought that it was a big disappointment because Vivi acted like a child who couldn't control herself. He thought it didn't matter, she was probably a child after all. Either way, Alfred thought the girl's plan scared him a little. If she can actually make the dragon bigger, it will be quite a problem. Alfred approached Vivi and asked what she would do after she enlarged the monster. He asked if she was going to rebuild the Demon King's army. Hearing this, Vivi's voice became dubious and she asked how he knew. Alfred asked what kind of spell Vivi was using, since growing to that size was impossible using a normal spell. He looked away and said that it was such an impressive magical boar. He looked through his fingers at Vivi, who was genuinely happy with these words. The girl laughed and said that for a lower being, Alfred was quite good at this. The boy thought that it was too easy. Vivi quickly drew a magic circle on the ground and showed it to Alfred. He asked if she really carved it into the bottom of the swamp. The girl proudly said that she had outdone herself. Alfred thought that the spell must have been well hidden since he hadn't noticed it. This girl might be a more powerful wizard than Alfred expected, although she was a little annoying. The boy stood up and said that tomorrow they would cleanse the magic circles. Vivi was amazed. Alfred said that after they finished, the girl would restore the roof. Vivi refused and asked why she had to do something like that. At that very moment, Femi growled menacingly at the girl and she agreed. Alfred said he was glad about it and then wished her good night. The next morning, the boy told the villagers everything. They were shocked by what happened during the night. Alfred said that everything was fine and he would sort it out soon so that everyone would be safe. The villagers said that, however, the boy had caught a dragon with great magical power and it had saved them. They said that if Alfred had not been there, the village would have been destroyed. Everyone thanked him in unison and said that he was the savior of their village. Alfred said that he had not done that much. Millet said that was not the case at all. The boy smiled when he saw the girl. At the same time, little Vivi was screaming that she was one of the 4 heavenly kings of the army. The children in the village admired the girl and asked who the 4 heavenly kings were. Millet asked if Vivi was really a powerful demon. Alfred said he had put a limiter on her so she would be fine. Millet worriedly asked if the boy had gotten hurt during the fight with that demon. Alfred said she shouldn't worry. Millet smiled and said that after all, Alfred was a strong and amazing person. Alfred said that it wasn't so, it was just that Vivi was the self-proclaimed Sky King. Millet smiled and said that even if that was the case, it didn't change the fact that Alfred protected their village, so she was grateful to him. Alfred also smiled and thanked Millet. The girl blushed. Alfred thought that she was genuinely happy when he thanked her. Together with Vivi and Femi, Alfred set out on his journey. The guild leader turned to the boy and asked if Alfred could take Millet with him as an observer. Without much thought, the boy agreed. Alfred thought that since it was the village chief's order, he probably couldn't refuse. Millet bowed and said that she might be inexperienced, but she wanted him to take care of her. Alfred agreed and together they went forward. Alfred said that he did not think it would be dangerous there, but if such a moment came, he would protect Millet. Vivi sighed heavily as she listened to their conversations. At this time, the villagers wished the boys success. Alfred was riding on Femi and Millet was sitting next to him. The girl said that Femi looked pretty cute and then asked what the others thought about it. Vivi looked at the wolf, after which she became very scared, because in her eyes, Femi was a terrifying monster. The girl walked forward talking about how terrible it was. She had a feeling that Fem wanted to eat her as soon as he got a chance to do it. She was scared. Hearing this, Alfred asked what nonsense the girl was talking about. Suddenly, Vivi stopped and said that they had arrived at their destination. Alfred quickly jumped off Femi. Millet covered her nose with her hand and said that it smelled really bad. Alfred agreed. The girl said it was incredible that Alfred and Femi had defeated a magical boar that was spewing such terrible poison. Alfred agreed, still holding his nose. Even Femi whined because of the terrible stench. He looked at Alfred with pity, his whole appearance saying that he couldn't cover his own nose. Alfred guessed he had no choice. He reached out and covered the wolf's nose. Vivi turned around and asked what they thought about it because it smelled really bad. The girl discovered a rare poisonous boar at the end of her search, after which she tied it to magic circles. Alfred listened to her without much enthusiasm. Alfred came closer to the liquid and said that the swamp was noticeably getting smaller. Suddenly, Millet called out to Alfred, attracting his attention. She pointed to a huge lobster she had spotted in the swamp. Alfred said it looked like a crayfish, although it was quite large. Alfred thought it was quite strange. He turned around and saw a tree sparrow which was only slightly smaller than Femi. He asked if this was the effect of the magic circles. Vivi asked contentedly if he had finally understood everything. She explained that the magical energy from the circles that had been concentrated in the boar was beginning to spread throughout the area. The girl was about to explain her plan when Alfred suddenly interrupted her and said that if this was the effect of her magic, then they had all the more reason to solve this problem. He ordered the girl to hurry up and kill the monsters. The guy threw a bucket at her and told her to scoop out all the dirt with the object. Vivi picked it up and said that was stupid. Alfred sternly said that it was Vivi's responsibility since she had drawn them and now it was her turn to remove them. The girl got angry and exclaimed to Alfred that it was disrespectful. She couldn't believe that he was making her scoop up the dirt. At that very moment, Femi growled loudly behind Vivi. She replied that she understood. The girl began scooping up dirt from the swamp, complaining along the way about why she had to do this. Watching this, Millet thought that she felt a little sorry for the girl. Alfred said that Millet was too kind. The girl was surprised by these words. In Alfred's opinion, Vivi was simply receiving merit for what she had done before. If she was careless, she could destroy the village. However, at this rate, she would never finish getting rid of the dirt. The guy also didn't want to harass the girl. He told Vivi that there was another way to do it. Hearing this, Vivi was amazed. Alfred raised his hands and created many magic circles. He said that wizards should use magic. Strong gusts of wind began to appear in the air. Millet tried to stay on the ground, but at the same time, she was enchanted by magic. While Vivi watched in a daze, Alfred thought about using wind magic to gather all the dirt together. He thought that he should also simultaneously make the dirt float using gravity magic. The next moment, a real hurricane rose high above the boys, which contained a lot of mud from the swamp. Millet watched in admiration at the magical picture that unfolded before her. While Vivi was equally shocked, Alfred loudly asked what she was doing. He shouted at the girl to start removing the magic circles. Vivi quickly agreed to this. Alfred threatened her that if she tried to do anything weird, he would drop all the dirt right on her. Vivi exclaimed that she had already said she would do it. Alfred watched what Vivi was doing and noted that she seemed to be obediently removing all the magic circles. After a while, Vivi got up from the ground and said that she was done with everything. Hearing this, Alfred agreed with this and said that the girl had done a good job. He carefully lowered his hands and with them the mud returned to the swamp. Thus they finished their work. Vivi turned around and exclaimed that only a demon king could use something like gravity magic, much less two different attributes at the same time. She screamed that if he lost control even a little, the spell could spontaneously explode. Alfred smiled and said that if it was 2 elements, then all was well because he could use 4 at once if necessary. Vivi was genuinely shocked when she heard this. She asked if Alfred was making fun of her. The guy asked if it looked like he needed it. Hearing this, Vivi fell silent. Immediately after that, she screamed that even if he was telling the truth, it was terribly difficult because even demons with huge magical power could use them for a maximum of a minute. Alfred smirked and said that she clearly underestimated him because he could last for an hour. Hearing this, Vivi fell silent. Alfred and Millet got back on Fem, after which the boys said that they were going back. Vivi looked at them and thought that something lower being was clearly scaring her. At this time, a joyful Millet held a huge crayfish in her arms and said that the magic was incredible. Alfred said that Millet could do anything with it. The girl kept saying that the crayfish was big and looked delicious. In fact, Alfred doubted that it was edible at all. Vivi was unhappy at this time about being covered in all this dirt. Suddenly, Millet had an idea. She said that when they returned, they should go to the bathhouse. Suddenly, the girl blushed and said that she meant separate bathhouses. Alfred thought that he had come to Murg village partly for the hot springs, so he saw no problem in accepting Millet's offer. At this time, the girl was still apologizing. After the boy promised Millet and her little sister Colette to have dinner with them and left them, the village chief told the boy about a couple of really good bathhouses. After listening to the village chief, Alfred became interested in this and went to the place he was told about. When he got there, he sighed in admiration as he watched the beauty of the place. The boy looked at the bathhouse through the fence with Femme. Alfred said with admiration that there was a whole bathhouse just for them. The village chief told him that there were many hot springs on the outskirts of the village, so Alfred could safely use any of them. Alfred and Femme were glad of this, for this permission was all that Alfred could ever ask for. The guy took off his jacket and told Femme that he would go inside and the wolf could wait outside. He also added that he would wash Femme outside later. The wolf was genuinely amazed by this. Femme began to beg Alfred with just one look to take him with him. Seeing this, Alfred simply couldn't help but react. The guy hugged Femme and agreed, but added that the wolf shouldn't fuss too much and not get anything dirty. Femme sternly stated that, of course, he would not do anything like that. After the boy took off his clothes, he and Femme went into the part of the building where the bathhouse was located. He smiled widely as he talked about how this would be his first bath in quite some time. Femme was just as excited as Alfred. Femme was about to jump into the bath, but Alfred stopped him and said that the wolf would only enter the pool after you washed yourself. Femme stopped and said that he knew. First of all, Alfred poured soap and water over himself, after which he did the same with the rather displeased Femme. The boy quickly started washing. He started washing Femme first, while the wolf enjoyed the process. After this short wash, they finally got into the water and were able to relax. They both breathed a sigh of relief because the hot water was exactly what they needed. Alfred noticed and said that it seemed to him that the hot water was seeping into his knee. Femme thought about it and said that he really didn't understand what the guy was talking about. Alfred looked at Femme and asked if he was right in his assumption that dogs don't like baths. Femme immediately stated that he wasn't a dog, so there was no problem. Alfred said he believed it. Then he sank a little deeper into the water and took a deep breath, letting go of all his thoughts. Alfred sighed, thinking that even if it was summer, these baths were still simply incredible. Feeling that Alfred was starting to overheat in the water, he stood up and said that he was getting out. The water made the boy dizzy. Seeing this, Femme whined and asked the boy to sit in the water for a little while longer. On the way to the exit, Alfred heard a female voice saying that demons don't need any swimsuits. A girl in response to this exclaimed that it was not so, because with all the dirt that was on the demon, she must be very dirty. The demon exclaimed that she was different from them, the lower beings. At that moment, Millet, Vivi, and Colette entered the bathhouse. Vivi and Colette were naked. The demon screamed loudly that she did not smell. As the girls went further into the bathhouse, Alfred and Femme hid behind a rock. The girls talked about how this was their first time visiting the bathhouse. Femme looked at his master and asked why the boy was hiding. Alfred quietly exclaimed that he had principles. The girls were discussing something heatedly while Femme silently looked at them. Alfred turned away and tried to convince himself that he was not listening to their conversation. Meanwhile, Millet kept telling Vivi that she should take a bath because this was their chance to finally wash their hair properly. Vivi covered her ears and exclaimed that she just hated bathhouses. Little Colette added that she was already washing herself. At this time, there was already foam on her head. Suddenly, Vivi looked suspiciously at Millet and said something that was more important to her. She reached out to Millet and said that despite the girl being an elf, her form was quite good. Millet was very surprised by the demon's actions. Vivi ran up to Millet and ripped the towel off her. Millet screamed loudly and started covering herself, saying that it should be hidden behind her clothes. Vivi approached Millet from behind and started touching the girl. Millet immediately blushed. The girl was very embarrassed and tried to tell Vivi something. Suddenly, she exclaimed that the truth was about to get angry, but Vivi did not stop at all. Colette told the Sky King that it did not matter how hard she massaged her little sister, because nothing would be lost from it. At this time, Alfred covered his face with his hands and looked at the floor. He thought with great difficulty that no matter what happened, he should not look under any circumstances. He held on to the thought that he was a gentleman. Noticing Alfred, Femme said rather worriedly that the guy's face had turned very red. Alfred was taken aback and removed his hands from his face. Sweat was pouring off him as he thought he might be feeling a little dizzy. His vision was swimming. Suddenly, Colette ran behind the rock where Femme and Alfred were hiding and exclaimed that Mr. was here with Femme. Hearing this, Millet immediately covered herself, shocked by what was happening. Vivi did not stay away. The girl also covered herself and, full of rage, said that he was going to spy on the poor girls in the bathhouse. She suggested that he must want to die. Colette looked at what was happening in front of her in bewilderment. All three girls walked straight up to Alfred. The guy wanted to justify himself. He asked them to wait because it was a complete misunderstanding. Vivi clearly didn't want to listen to what the guy was saying. She threw a bucket at his head with all her might and exclaimed that he was a disgusting wizard. Vivi's blow was very strong, causing Alfred to quickly fall backwards and lose consciousness. The last thing he could hear before that was Millet's frightened scream. From that moment on, his memory was blurry. The girl tried to call him. After a while, when Alfred finally opened his eyes, he looked very tired. Right in front of him, he saw Millet's face, smiling sweetly the moment she noticed that Alfred had woken up. Noticing this, the guy immediately jumped up and tried to sit up. Vivi, who was sitting right next to him, started complaining about how useless this guy was. She called him a nasty creature. The boy rubbed his head. He remembered feeling dizzy and then losing consciousness. He also remembered Vivi throwing a bucket at him. He took a deep breath and smiled, thinking only that it was quite unpleasant for him to realize this, but it was quite pathetic for an S-class wizard. The boy thanked them and said he owed them a favor. Millet smiled and said he didn't owe them anything, but Vivi said it was weird anyway, since she could have sworn the bathhouse was reserved for them. Alfred said that it wasn't so because the village chief had also recommended this place to him, and he was 100% sure that the bathhouse was reserved for him. Hearing this, Vivi frowned. Suddenly, Colette entered the room riding on Femi and asked if the master was feeling better. Millet said that the village chief had told them exactly the same thing, only through Colette. The girl asked her sister if that was true. The girl smiled broadly and said that she had heard about it from the village chief. The man recommended the hot springs to the mister, and then said that Colette and the others could go there after the boy. Vivi and Millet exclaimed that the girl had told them something completely different. Earlier, Colette had shouted at them that the village chief had said they could go to the baths, and she had really wanted to do so. The girl was confused. Millet blushed and said that somehow they had this misunderstanding, and she was very sorry about it. Little Colette screamed that she was very sorry. Alfred suddenly noticed that he was wearing clothes. He didn't remember changing clothes earlier. Suddenly, Millet grabbed the guy by the shoulders and asked what condition he was in. The girl exclaimed that she would now bring him some water. Alfred agreed and thanked the girl for her care. Millet smiled broadly and said that these hot springs were infused with magic from magical minerals, and that was why it was so easy for wizards to get drunk. Alfred made a mental note of this. Colette ran up to Alfred and called him several times. The guy asked what happened. Colette moved closer to the boy's ear and whispered to him that it was her little sister Millet who dressed him. The satisfied girl smiled, looking at Alfred. After this information, the guy lowered his head even lower. He said that it seems he is now in great debt to Millet. In response to this, Femi only barked. Having finished all the preparations and business in the bathhouse, Alfred went out with Femi. There was a wind blowing outside, and the guy noted that it was quite a good wind. He covered his face with his hand and thought that they must have already gone home. Little Colette called Alfred and told him to hurry up. Together they walked forward at a fairly fast pace, the wind blowing their hair and pretty dresses. Millet turned and waved at him, then told him that the last one to arrive would go without dinner. After these words, Vivi and Colette ran forward as fast as they could. Millet said that she actually still had to cook it, so Alfred didn't have to hurry too much. The girls smiled widely. Suddenly, Vivi fell to the ground and said so. Millet exclaimed that it was all because she was in too much of a hurry. Alfred couldn't contain his joy and laughter at this situation. He covered his mouth with his hand and laughed. At this time, Colette was pressed against Millet's legs, hugging her sister, and Vivi was watching. Alfred was saying that a life dedicated to protecting these beautiful people was not as bad as it might have seemed before. Alfred Lint is currently an S-rank wizard. 5 days have passed since he started working as a guard in Murg village. He dealt with the danger from the beasts and thought he could rest, but then the culprit of all this appeared. The demon girl, who is the self-proclaimed one of the 4 heavenly kings of the army of the demon king Vivi. She intended to enlarge the boars and raise dragons using powerful magic, and was aiming to restore the demon king's army, but he completely prevented this. Suddenly, the children began to shout that the Sky King was so cool. Alfred thought that she was a scoundrel and just a little stupid. However, now she was under his care. Alfred thought about asking the elder about re-education. He thought that leaving her in their care for now would be a good idea. In the end, she is not an enemy that the village can fight, although he still has to apologize for that. Alfred says that it is a good point. He thinks that even if she is an ordinary demon, she is still a demon. If they underestimate her and let her go, there's no telling what she can do. He asks why not hand her over to the Lord. The man replies that he thought about it too, but the Lord hates any demons. If they don't do it, she won't escape execution. Alfred said that he understood everything and how cruel he was. The man thanks the boy and adds that the village will try to help him. Alfred smiles nervously and says that he is going to take advantage of her and make her work for the good of the village. After some time, the young man came to the construction site and shouted to Vivi that at this rate, she would not see lunch. Suddenly, Vivi hits his finger with the hammer. She screamed about why she had to do something like that. At that moment, she was sitting on Alfred's porch. The young man replied that it was because she had burned his roof. The girl says she has her own work, so she will go. Alfred asks if the girl has any patience. She replies that there are no patients, but she will help look after the cattle that is kept in the village. Millet always tries to help as much as she can. The young man replies that the girl seems to be working hard. Suddenly, a girl runs up to the young man and says that she thought that her little sister would be a wonderful wife. Alfred agrees, and he himself thinks that he is not against it. Helping him and looking after Vivi were just her duties. He was sure that if Millet thought about it even a little, she would never love an old man like him. Millet says she's thought about it, but if they use Vivi's magic circles, will they be able to get a ton of meat? Alfred says that's right, these cattle are just normal animals, they're different from magical beasts. Millet asks if the crab was a magical creature. Alfred replies that if you think about it, then it's possible. Vivi overhears their conversation and says that everything related to circles is easy for her. Millet replies that she knew that. The young man says that in that case they will come in the afternoon and try to do it. Millet thanks the young man and says that she will wait. Vivi shouted at the boy not to decide everything himself because he was a lower being. The boy replied that according to the girl, she said that she could do everything. Vivi replied that she did not say that she would do it. Vivi says that she is one of the 4 heavenly kings of the Demon King's army. She is an outstanding being who must be served. The young man must be an impudent fool to force her to do manual labor. The boy looks at the girl with a contemptuous look and then goes over and takes the ladder. Vivi shouts that it's good and she thinks it wouldn't hurt to walk a little. After a while, the roof was completely fixed. Alfred said there were a few rough spots, but she did it all herself. It was a very good job. Vivi wipes the sweat from her forehead and says it's natural. Alfred says that after a short rest they can go to the farm. Vivi says that she does not want to. After a while they are met by Millet, who says that she was waiting for them. They were outlived by a cow that made a sound. Millet laughs and says they are ready anytime. Vivi screams because the cow is so big. Alfred adds that in that case Vivi should hurry up and make circles. Vivi didn't understand why she had to do this for a lower being. She was tired and it was very hard to do them. At that moment, the girl folded her arms across her chest. Alfred thought he could make Femme growl at her, but that wasn't an option. If the girl couldn't, there was nothing he could do about it. His job was done. Vivi said she hadn't said she couldn't. Alfred replied that he thought that with Vivi's power it would be easier to increase the cattle, but it is not that simple. Vivi said that it is obvious that it is easy. Alfred turned away and said that it was too hard for the girl. Vivi shouted that it was no problem for them at all. The boy said that everything was fine and he didn't want to force him. Using too much magic is dangerous, especially for inexperienced wizards. The young man smirks at this point. Vivi got angry and told him to underestimate her. He should just stand there and watch. Millet was scared of Vivi. She pushed the girl and told her to go to the free pasture. Alfred smiles and thinks that Vivi is really easy to provoke. Vivi at this moment thought about the circles that are the basis for magic circles. This is their core. The girl says that experience is especially important for the simplest actions. Alfred says that Vivi talks a lot. Millet smiles and says that she wants to see how his magic works. Alfred smiles as he looks at Millet and then agrees. At that moment, Vivi sits down on the ground and starts using her magic. Suddenly, a magic seal appears on the ground. Then Vivi says that everything is ready. Alfred smiled and said that as expected, the girl always did a great job. Vivi replied that she made the circles twice as big as before. Millet puts her hand on the boy's shoulder and tells Vivi that she is incredible. Vivi smiles and thanks him for his help and tells him that she gave it her all. Suddenly, a shout is heard that Millet's break is over. Millet tells Alfred that this is not good because she needs to get back to work. Alfred asks why they don't help the girl. He asks Femi if they really can't just leave. Femi barks affirmatively. Millet says he's a godsend. Vivi says it's pretty heavy, so they shouldn't overexert themselves. Millet said to loosen and prepare the straw for feeding, feed them until they were full, and give them lots of love. Millet smiles back and says that the cow is happy. Vivi asks if she is really happy. The girl looks at the cow, who looks very happy. She asks if she is really happy, then Vivi becomes embarrassed. Millet then thanks everyone for their work as they really saved them a lot of time. After the bath, Vivi said she was hungry, calling out to the lower being. Alfred thought that cooking was too stressful. He says that it is perfect and they will eat jerky. Vivi screams about the boy forcing her to eat jerky for dinner. She just can't believe it. Alfred is embarrassed and tells the girl not to laugh at the jerky. At this point, Millet enters the room and apologizes for the wait. She smiles and announces that she has brought dinner. Entering the room, Millet asks if it's not great. Vivi runs up to Millet and tells her that she's quite a skilled lower being. Femi then approaches the girl and starts sniffing the food. Vivi giggles and tells the boy to continue eating his jerky. Millet interrupts and says she has some for Al too. After a while, Millet lays out the food and gives everyone their portion. They wish them a pleasant appetite. There is a plate of food in front of the boy. Al says that it is beef stew from the village of Murg and it is very tasty. Al thanks the girl for bringing food every day. Millet smiles and says that it is just her hobby. Vivi smiles and happily says that she wants more. In a way, she was being generous to Millet. The girls shouted that the Sky King is really cool. Then Millet asks what about Al since she has a lot left. The young man agrees and says that he will have a second helping too. He thinks that it is very tasty. He has a good job and eats delicious food every day. He has fun with his friends. Having finished their dinner, the boys wash the dishes. Alfred thinks that ordinary life makes him happy. Then the girls leave and say goodbye to the young man until tomorrow. Alfred sighs and tells Femi that they are going to bed. Suddenly, Femi slips past Al's legs and climbs into bed. Al thinks about how the bed will be covered in hair, but it doesn't matter anymore. Suddenly, Vivi calls him and asks where her bed is. Alfred smirks and replies that who knows and maybe it will appear when the girl makes it. Vivi smirks back and tells the boy that he didn't seem to think about it. Then they turn their attention to the bed. Vivi's leg moves a little and the next moment Vivi and Alfred are trying to run to the bed where Femi is already lying. Alfred manages to lie down first and starts laughing, saying that this is his bed. Vivi was sitting on the floor and shouting at the young man to know his place. The next moment, the girl throws Alfred out of bed and lies down herself. She tells him to go to sleep in the barn. The young man does not understand why she does this and then asks if the girl really wants him to become serious. After some time, the young man proposed to the girl to make a deal. He would share the bed and give the girl a place near the wall. Vivi says that there is nothing to be done and then warns the boy to just try to do something bad. The boy asks what he would think of someone like Vivi. Then they both wish each other good night. Then morning came. Alfred started wincing because something was tickling his face. It was Femi's tail. This tail also tickled Vivi's nose. Eventually, the agreement was broken. Alfred slept on the edge and Vivi pressed against him. Femi slept on all the pillows. At this time, the seal left by Vivi was activated in the cow stall. During this time, Millet and Vivi tried to take care of the cows as best they could, and Femi continued to look after Vivi. He looked after the wild animals as well as his guard duties day after day. As the boy sat on the small folding chair, Millet brought him a new chair. The boy thanked the girl. A farmer passed by and told Alfred that he was doing his job very well. The boy thanked the man. Then finally the boy had some free time, but sitting here would be the best option for his knee. Suddenly a scream was heard, calling Alfred. The village chief ran up to him. The young man asked him what had happened. The man screamed and said that the cow had become incredibly huge. Alfred said that was natural because that was what they had set up the magic circles for. The man shouted that they didn't have to be that big. Suddenly, a loud mooing sound was heard. The man and the boy grabbed their heads. They ran to the place. The boy asked if it was that big. The man told Alfred to just follow him because it was really huge. They ran at breakneck speed, and Alfred shouted for the village chief to calm down. Suddenly, the young man saw the silhouette of a cow and thought that this was bad news. The men shouted at Millet to just leave the cows and come back and to be careful. Alfred shouted at Millet not to do something stupid. Millet shouted at the boy that the cow had suddenly become big. Alfred asked Vivi what all this meant. Those circles shouldn't have that effect. Vivi smirked and said that while she was taking care of the cows for the last 3 days, she had made further improvements to the magic circles. She laughs and talks about what happens when she gets down to business. Alfred asks the girl if she has heard of the word restraint. Femme asks what they should do. Alfred says that if Femi is asking about this, then she should look at the village elder. The man was thinking about something at that moment. The man says that they can probably only butcher her. Alfred asks if the man is sure. The man says that before that they were going to sell her next month. However, if they try to do this, they will have to get her to the city alive, and if they make meat out of her instead, it will spoil on the way. Even if they make jerky out of her, it will still be difficult given her size. Alfred says that in that case, after they butcher her, he will use magic to preserve her. The chief asks if that is true. He says that the boy is their savior. At that moment, Vivi remembered the moments she spent with this cow, how she brushed her, created seals with her, or fed her. The girl was very scared. The boy prepared to destroy the cow. At that moment, Vivi called him and asked him to wait. The boy said that he was very sorry, but they had no choice. The girl suddenly appeared between the boy and the cow and told him to stop, because Mufi had done nothing wrong. Alfred was very surprised when he heard Vivi calling the cow Mufi. At that moment, Millet shouted that her name was 8. Alfred thought that it seemed that Vivi had already chosen a more suitable nickname. She screamed for the young man to look at her charming eyes and tell her if he really was going to kill her. Alfred says that he is. Vivi gets angry and says that it is cruel. She asks if the young man really plans to eat her meat later. Alfred is absolutely serious when he says that this is true. Vivi didn't understand why the young man was saying that, since Mufi was a special cow. Alfred approaches the girl and says that because she is so big, she will have problems eating, and it will also be a disaster if she starts to roll around outside and destroy half the village. This will be extremely sad for both Mufi and the villagers. Millet approaches them and tells the girl that they were raising her for meat anyway and were also planning to sell her soon. She says it's not Vivi's fault. The girl runs to the cow and says she's so sorry because she made her big. Alfred says it's not the girl's fault because he was the one who asked her to do it. Vivi says she wants the boy to do it painlessly. The boy then tells her to trust him. He then leaps through the air and lands right above Mufi's head. The young man thinks about piercing her brain with a magic spear. The next moment, Mufi falls down without signs of life. After some time, the young man quickly allowed the villagers to drain the blood and cut it up. Using explosive magic, he dug a hole and cleared it for storage. Then, using storage magic on the spot, he turned the hole into a makeshift magic bag. Then all the villagers filled it with pieces of meat, securing and covering them with the earth that had been dug up. This way the meat would be fresh all year round. The villagers ask if it will really last that long. Alfred smiles and tells them not to worry about it. Everyone admired Alfred. They now had even more reasons to make him stay here. The young man at this moment thought that they were talking about everything. The inhabitants thought that it seemed that they would have a celebration tonight. At that moment, Vivi was sitting by the mound of earth and telling Mufi to rest in peace. No one paid attention to the girl. After a while, everyone was roasting meat and enjoying the holiday. Children and women smiled as they ate the delicious meat. One man told Alfred that these were the best pieces of meat, so he should eat them too. Alfred said that they were really tasty. Then he asked the man for a vegetarian dish and some juice. The boy carried the fried vegetables and juice to the far corner of the square. He came to Vivi and told the girl that she had done a good job. The girl said she wasn't going to eat. Alfred said that if she was, he wouldn't force her. Suddenly, her stomach began to rumble. Alfred said he had brought fried vegetables, but the girl said she had no appetite. Then a girl ran up to Vivi and told her that it was very tasty, but Vivi turned away. The girl added that everyone eats living creatures to live. Her sister told her that. Vivi looked at the plate of meat and told the girl that she was right. Millet tells Vivi that Mufi became meat for a reason. She asks if it's not her responsibility to eat everything so that nothing goes to waste. Vivi says Millet is right and reaches for her plate. She starts eating the meat and says that it is very tasty. Big tears appeared in the girl's eyes. The girl thanked Mufi for the tasty meat. Already at night, Femi was sleeping on the floor and Alfred and Vivi were on the bed. The young man felt that Vivi was snuggling up to him again. He thought that she was at it again. The young man opened his eyes and turned to the girl, but she was crying in her sleep and calling for Mufi. The young man was very surprised. He wiped Vivi's tears and said that everything would be fine. The young man covered her with a blanket and wished the girl sweet dreams. Vivi smiled back and took Alfred's hand. The next morning, the girl shouted at Alfred to wake up because they still had work to do today. The boy stood up and started wiping his eyes, then told Vivi that she had woken him up very suddenly. He asked Vivi if she had come to her senses yet. The girl replied that she was fine. Suddenly Millet came and said that she had brought them breakfast. Sister Millet then asked the Sky King if she was okay. Vivi was embarrassed and said that she must have made them all worry. Alfred thought that the good dream had affected Vivi in this way. He left the room and smiled, thinking that this was the most important thing. After a while they had breakfast and Vivi said that she was full. Then the village elder came to them and told Alfred that he had a favor to ask of him. The young man was very surprised that the man had come. The village chief said that he was about yesterday's meat. He would like to go to town tomorrow to sell it. The young man agreed. Then the man said that there had been rumors lately that bandits had appeared recently. That is why he would like to ask the young man to accompany him. The young man says that the man always sold meat to the merchants who came to the village. The man agrees and says that the merchants will arrive only in a month. There is too much meat and the boy is probably tired from using magic yesterday. Alfred tells the headman not to worry and to leave the matter to him. The man thanks the boy and leaves. The girls began to worry about the boy's condition. Millet told him not to push himself, they had plenty of time. Alfred said he would be fine and thanked the girls for worrying about him. He understands the elder's intention to sell the meat as quickly as possible because it is summer now. Soon it will be autumn, that is, the tax season, which will come very soon. The young man runs into the room and after getting dressed, tells Vivi to get ready. She asks why she has to do such a thing. Alfred says that the girl's specialty is magic circles. The girl says that this is definitely her specialty. Alfred says that they just need to make enough magic bags. The girl is embarrassed and says that her dear Alfred is truly hopeless. Then Alfred apologizes to Millet and says that he will not be able to wash the dishes, to which the girl replies that everything is fine. After a while, the young man begins to create magic. First, he will take the skin of that huge cow and with the help of magic, he will sew several large bags. He then tells Vivi to use volume increase first, and since they are carrying raw meat, he needs to create a circle with a constant state. Since they are traveling on a carriage, he also needs to use a circle with a constant mass. Vivi says that it is quite difficult to create 3 types at once. She will try to apply them, so if anything happens, he should inform her. The young man agrees. After some time, everything was ready. The boy says that Vivi was indeed quite skilled with magic circles. She improved the boy's work by using some technique unfamiliar to him. The young man says that then all that remains for them to do is pack the meat and check their equipment. At this point, Millet calls Vivi and asks why the girl started calling Alfred her dear Al today. Vivi didn't understand what he was talking about. Millet says that Vivi had called Alfred something different before. The girl replies that there is no specific reason. Everyone calls him that too, so she just decided to try calling him that too. She looks embarrassed and then says that she definitely doesn't have any other specific reasons. Millet was surprised and said she felt like she was somehow deceiving her. Alfred watches them and thinks that Vivi has begun to share their joys and worries. He thinks that she has become a real resident of the village of Murg. At dawn one morning, they set out on an 8-hour journey to the big city to sell Mufi's meat. The travelers included Femi and Albert as escorts. Millet is in charge of the trade and Vivi and Colette are assistants. Millet asked Alfred how he liked the trip. The young man replied that it was quite good. At this point, Colette was talking about how Fem was so fluffy. Alfred asked if the girl wanted to change places. He had some experience in driving carts. The girl said that if she got tired, she would ask the boy for help. Colette said proudly that her sister was such a workaholic. Before leaving, the elder told Millet and Alfred that he was counting on them. Alfred thought that despite her youth, Millet was honest and wise. She was trusted by the village chief and the villagers so much that she was given the role of representing the village. She might even be elected as the new village chief. At this point, Vivi sighed and distracted Alfred's thoughts. The boy told the girl, but she was quite heavy and her horn was prickly. The girl said that she was quite light, but the boy said that it was not so and his legs were now going numb. At this point, Colette ordered Femi to attack. The girl shouted for Femi not to lick her. Alfred shouted for the girls to stop misbehaving and to calm down. Millet said it was incredibly sweet. After a while, Femi felt something and became very serious. She told Alfred about it and he asked her what happened. The boy then told Femi to cover the rear and she agreed and then turned to the end of the cart. Millet asked the boy what had happened. Suddenly, an arrow flew towards the girl. She noticed it and was very scared. However, the young man was able to block the arrow with his magic. He immediately shouted for Millet to get inside. A bunch of bandits ran out to the cart. Alfred thought that these were typical representatives of bandits. After killing the coachman, they take the cart and the horse. They also block the road with logs so that the horse does not simply run past them. Then the young man got out of the carriage and thought that these guys were quite skilled. The man told Alfred that if he gave them the goods and the horse, they might let him live. The young man said that it was important cargo for them and refused. The man smiles and replies that everyone who says such things soon dies. Then Alfred replies that those who obediently agree too. The man says that this is not true because people are also an important component of profit because they can become valuable servants. Vivi, hearing this, thought that this was very rude. Alfred, sighing, says that he has no intention of being captured by someone like bandits or letting them escape. He is going to beat everything out of them, so he asks everyone to come to him. The man said they were annoying him, so he ordered his boys to kill them. At that moment, the men got into a fighting stance. Alfred thought they were moving too slowly. I guess that's okay, they're just bandits after all, but he never looks for a fight. The next moment, the boy appears behind the men and glowing chains appear on their hands. Then the men fall to the ground because their hands are tied. Then Alfred began to gather the bandits together. The man told the young man not to be so overconfident because right now his people were in that cart. Alfred stood silently when suddenly a scream was heard. It was Fem who attacked the bandits who had decided to climb into the cart. At that moment, the man shouted to his other comrades to shoot. Alfred said that it was very sad. After all, arrows will never work if you know they are flying at you. At that moment, an arrow shot from the bushes was heading straight towards Femi, but the young man, with the help of the wind flow, protected it and directed the arrow straight into the bushes. He tied up the shooter. Alfred asks Femi if she senses anyone else nearby. Femi replies that everything is fine and she does not sense anyone else. Alfred smiles and says that if so, that's a relief. He then tells Femi to gather all the bandits together. He goes to the carriage and asks if the girls are okay. Vivi is surprised and asks if it's over already. Millet says it's okay already. Alfred is surprised and notices an unfinished magic circle on the floor of the carriage. He realizes that Vivi was going to protect everyone with an arrow ward, but she didn't have time to finish it. Alfred says that during battle, magic circles don't need to be so neat. Vivi replies that if there is some kind of defect, the circle may not work. Alfred says that even if it is 70% done, it will still work. If it doesn't work, the girl can just draw it again. Quantity is better than quality. Vivi thinks about it. Alfred laughs and thinks that now she has become serious. He thinks that Vivi draws her circles too meticulously. The magic circles drawn by experts in magic academies have magnificent effects and they are incredibly amazing. However, they are aimed at something completely different, or in other words, they are not suitable for battle. He says that somehow wandering wizards cast spells without spells. At this point, Femi starts sniffing the boy and says that everything is ready. Alfred sends Femi away and says that she could not smell him there because it is embarrassing. Femi does not understand what the young man is talking about. Then the bandits get into the carriage and are connected by a magical chain. Alfred sits down in the driver's seat. Millet says she could drive the carriage. Alfred says it was dangerous now, so he needs to protect the girl better. Millet says that then, in that case, she will be protected by Alfred again. The girl asks if this is really so. The young man answers the girl in the affirmative and adds that she should rely on him. The boy then says he can drive the cart alone. Millet is embarrassed and suggests the boy give it his all. Colette says it's very charming. After some time, they reach the city. The young man says that it is right ahead. When the heroes entered the city, he handed the bandits over to the guard. It seems that they were wanted, so they received a good reward. Alfred extended his hand and invited the girls to enjoy a delicious dinner. Millet asks Alfred if they did a good job. Then Alfred looks around. He thinks what a huge city this is. Vivi says that it looks like there is a whole crowd of lesser beings here. At this point, Alfred told the girl to put on her hood. She asks why she has to do it. Alfred said that it would be problematic if his demonic nature was revealed. Vivi says it seems she has no choice, so she pulls up her hood. She sighs and thanks the girl. Milette said she couldn't believe the feudal lord of this town despised demons. Alfred said it was just to be on the safe side. He then turned to Femi and told her to act like a dog. Femi made a cute face. Colette was delighted, and Alfred realized that she was now indistinguishable from a dog. Then they came to the merchant. Millet says he'll go negotiate the sale then. If anything, she's counting on the help of her companions. After a while, the man says he understands their circumstances, but he wonders if the meat is really okay. Millet said that thanks to their farmers and mages, the meat is quality. The cows of their village have bright red meat, their fat is pleasant to taste, there is a large amount of marbled tenderloin inside, and the rest of their customers enjoyed it wholeheartedly. The man inspects the meat and says it is of good quality. He has heard rumors for some time and would like to try it. After all, there are few people around here who can use preservation magic. He's just worried that it will go bad because of some mage from a small village. The man glanced sideways at Alfred. He asks if he has any written guarantees. Alfred shows the man a card and says that he has a certificate of identification of a magician from the team of heroes. The man was incredibly surprised when he looked at this certificate. The man asks the boy why he is doing something like that. Alfred shuts him up and says that his presence here is a secret for now. The man replies that he understands and says that he is very sorry. The adventurer's cards cannot be forged, and therefore he is extremely trustworthy. Plus, he is S rank. The man smiles and suggests returning to negotiations. Millet thanks Alfred for her help. This was about to turn into a tense negotiation. Alfred says that everything is fine. Ensuring the magical effect is the duty of the magician. After a while, the man gives Millet payment for the meat. The girl thanks him. Vivi at this point says that they emptied such a bag. The sun began to set a little after the deal was completed. While the group of young men were assembling the cart, the man who had bought the meat from them approached them and called Alfred to discuss one point. He asks if he can boast to his son that he met the honorable gentleman. Alfred says that he must thank him for the service rendered, but it is a secret. The man then asks if the boy can give him an autograph. He says his son is a fan of the boy. Alfred says he thinks it's no big deal. Since he is a fan, he has no choice. The boy asks the name of the man's son. Vivi asks if the boy will keep them waiting. After a while they leave, and the man says thank you very much. If they need anything else, they can definitely come to him again. At sunset, the carriage set off for the inn. In the short time when their work was done, the young man asked why they did not take a walk along the castle street. They saw some tasty treats. Colette said they looked delicious. Vivi said they couldn't be found in Murg village and they looked delicious. Alfred agreed with the girls. Alfred takes out a bag of money and tells the merchant to give him 5 of these goodies. Then he remembers Femi, who also wants one of these goodies. Alfred tells the merchant that he needs one more. Then the girls start eating these sweets. Vivi was surprised that it was very amazing and incredibly delicious. Alfred wonders if this food is even suitable for feeding to a dog or a wolf. Femi is not an ordinary wolf, so he is sure that everything will be fine. At this point, Femi is drooling. The young man gives her the treats and then tries them himself. He realizes that sweetness is filling his tired body. Then they notice how the meat is being cut. Femi tells Alfred that she wants to eat it. The boy asks Femi if there is a limit to her hunger. Since they came all the way here, he suggests they have some fun. The young man also buys meat for everyone. He says that this steak is so unusual, as if it came from heaven. Millet says that the food stalls are not bad and Vivi agrees with her. Alfred thinks that everyone seemed to be satisfied after eating a delicious meal. Since they will be staying in Femi, he has taken a slightly expensive hotel for Millet. The hotel employee shows everyone to their room and wishes them to feel at home. Millet thanks the employee. Alfred asks why they share a room. The young man enters the room and sees 2 beds. He asks Millet what they are. Alfred asks the girl if she is going to sleep with him. Millet says that she is. This hotel is expensive after all. She asks if that might be a problem. Alfred thought that as soon as she could figure it out. Vivi comes into the room and says that there is nothing wrong with sleeping in the same room. It is not like just sharing. The girl takes off her shoes and stockings and says that she usually shares a bed with Alfred. The young man nervously calls the girl. At this point, Millet nervously repeated that Alfred and Vivi were sleeping together. She was very surprised. Alfred finds it problematic that an old man would share a room with a girl ripe for marriage. Millet asks Alfred if it is true that he and Vivi are sleeping together. Alfred agrees and says that it is because they share a bed. Femi also sleeps with them. Millet says that Femi is actually a dog. Femi at this point says that she is a wolf. Vivi interrupts them and asks if she can sleep in the same bed with Al as usual. Femi can sleep with Millet and Colty. At that moment, Femi started to lick Vivi's face. Millet took Vivi with her and said that the girl would sleep with her. Vivi said that it would be cramped with Colty. Millet replied that it would still be a bit awkward if they slept together. Alfred realized that they were arguing for some reason. Vivi asked Millet why she was angry and if she was jealous. Millet begins to blush and become embarrassed. Alfred says he doesn't mind sleeping on the floor. Millet says there's no way she can let Alfred sleep on the floor. Alfred says it's okay. He had been an adventurer for many years, so a wooden floor was much better than dirt or rocks. Colty interrupts them and says that she will sleep with Mr. Then. Millet says that she thinks everything will be fine. Eventually, the boy went to bed with Colty and Femi in the same bed. Colty was happy that Femi was so fluffy. The girl wished Alfred good night. The boy covered her with a blanket and wished her the same. At that moment, Vivi was telling Millet to move a little more. Millet said that Vivi was only telling her half of it. Vivi replied that the girl was talking nonsense, that a lesser being could be her equal. While Alfred was sleeping, he heard some rustling. When he woke up, he saw Millet, who had climbed into bed next to him and snuggled up to him. The young man called the girl, but she did not answer and slept, shaking her ears. The young man thought that she got up to go to the toilet, but then she got into the wrong bed because she was half asleep. He tried to call the girl, but she grabbed his hand. Then the girl called the boy by name in her dream. He put his hand on his face and sighed. The next morning, Vivi woke up, stretched, and noticed that Millet was missing. She looked at Alfred's bed and yelled out what Millet was doing. She screamed about this shameless elf who sneaked into a guy's bed in the middle of the night. Millet screamed and said that she didn't even notice. Vivi accused Millet of lying. Millet said she wasn't lying, but Vivi didn't believe her and said it was written all over her face. Millet yawned and Vivi said that the girl shouldn't do that. Then Millet took her blanket and lay down again in bed. Alfred didn't understand what the girl was doing. Millet told Alfred that she would sleep a little longer. Vivi was very surprised, then she shook the blanket and said that she couldn't take her eyes off her for a second. She led Millet, to which the girl replied that she wanted to sleep. Vivi replied that they had a lot of work to do today. Colette told Mr. Alfred that she wanted to sleep. Alfred picked up the girl and said that she would sleep on the way. For some reason, they left the hotel and went shopping in the city. Millet held a note from the village chief. She then asked everyone to leave their shopping for her. Alfred said that even though bargaining was her job, she was definitely suited for it. Then Colette called Alfred and pointed somewhere to the side. Colette pointed to the stalls. Alfred understood what the girl was hinting at. He gives the girls money and says that he will manage and they can go ahead. The girls are happy and rush to the sweet sellers. Then they return joyful, holding treats in their hands. At that moment, Millet was dragging a heavy bag of groceries. Alfred helped the girl load the bag into the cart. Then they loaded up and set off on their journey. Millet said she had tried a lot of different delicious foods and also this time had a really fun experience. Alfred said he found it fun too. At that moment, Colette and Vivi looked at the city moving away from them. Colette smiled and waved goodbye to the city. The journey home was very quiet. Suddenly the carriage shook itself and Millet was very frightened. Alfred laughed and asked the girl if she really felt at home. He hinted that the road was terrible. Millet said that it was unavoidable. Then they were approaching the beginning of the village. Millet said that it was nice to see the village again. The young man agreed and thought that they were already home. He lived a life full of travel and adventures and did not know the feeling of returning home. He is glad that he is home now. Although he has not lived here for so long, he has already become attached to this village. Alfred said that he would unload all the purchases now. Vivi decided to help him and said that this bag was as light as a feather, thanks to his magic. Suddenly, Alfred heard the villagers' delighted exclamations. The man said that the boy must be tired from the long journey. He is genuinely grateful for their contribution to the village. The woman said that thanks to the giant cow, meat is cheaper, so it is a huge lifeline. Vivi shouts out that it is her doing. Alfred was embarrassed and said that it was nothing. He was just doing his job as a guard. The elder said that he had heard that the young man had played a big role in protecting against bandits. At this point, Millet was telling everyone what Alfred had done earlier. The elder told the boy that he should go and rest today. Alfred says that's a good idea. Alfred imagined himself sitting in the bathtub and thinking that when you returned to the place called the Hot Springs Abode, the first place you would immediately head to would be obvious. Alfred asked the village elder where he could find a good bathhouse. The man understood what the young man wanted and agreed. To relieve the fatigue of a long journey, they head to the hot springs. Millet said that it was the first time they had all come here together. Vivi was glad that the abundance of hot baths was the only thing she liked about this place. Frankly, the young man would like to visit this place more often so that his knee would recover faster. Finally, they arrived at the hot spring. Alfred told the girls they could go first. Millet said the boy should go first. Alfred insisted the girls go first, but Millet said they were in no hurry. Vivi was fed up with all this and said that she would go first. Then suddenly she saw Femi enter the room. Alfred said he needed to wash Fem, so he would go first. Millet told the boy not to be shy. Vivi didn't understand why he went first. The young man takes off his shirt and says that the hot spring is quite small, but it is really nice. Fem barks positively. Then the young man goes inside and says that here is the hot spring in which he so wanted to bathe, and now is the perfect weather for an unforgettable experience from the hot springs. The boy then realizes that they are on the edge of a cliff. It will be dangerous for the girls, so he better set up a protective barrier just in case. The boy then turns to Fem and says that he is going to wash her. After a while, Femi's fur was all soapy. Alfred told her that he had been thinking about it a lot lately. But he asks her to tell him that her intelligence has not deteriorated. Femi screamed and said that this was very rude. The young man smiled awkwardly and said that lately she could not get rid of her dog aura or something like that. She doesn't speak anything but yapping, so he thought so. Fem said it was unfortunate, but humans just couldn't understand her because they only had a weak means of conveying their thoughts called speech. Alfred asks if she really thinks they'll be incapable if they don't talk. Fem says that's not the point, there are just so many other ways to communicate. She calls the boy a newbie. Alfred didn't understand why she was being so rude. The boy said he understood. Then the boy said he would wash away all the bubbles in her fur. Fem replied that it meant the boy was rude enough not to notice his own stupidity. He then asked her to get ready because he was about to pour it on her. Suddenly he heard a scream of excitement about how amazing the mountain hot spring was. Vivi screamed for Colette to calm down because it was dangerous. Colette told Alfred that they had come to see him, and Vivi, who was running after the girl, told the young man not to look at her. Alfred said he was definitely not looking at all. They knew he was inside, by the way. Vivi said the boy was trying to tell her she shouldn't have come in. Vivi replied that she was a high-class demon and would not adhere to the common practices of lower beings. Alfred asked why she did not live up to her words. Vivi turned to the entrance and said that it seemed that Millet wanted to thank the boy. At that moment, the girl called Alfred and thanked him for everything he had done during all this time. The girl smiled sweetly and said that she would wash his back. The boy turns to Millet and asks what she means by thank you. The girl clenches her fist and tells the boy to leave it to her. Then the girl straightened her towel. Alfred jumped up and shouted that it was not necessary because everything suited him as it was. Millet answered the young man that he did not need to hold back. The young man looked at Fem with hope, but she, not paying attention, was floating in the bathtub. Alfred said that the girl did not need to worry about him so much. Millet said that it had been a long journey, so she wanted the boy to relax in a hot spring. It was also thanks for protecting them from the bandits. The girl then sat the boy down and asked him to just accept it and sit down obediently. Alfred realized that it seemed he couldn't refuse her. Suddenly, Millet notices that Alfred's back is covered in scars. Alfred replies that it's because he was an adventurer. The girl replies that it's very cool. Vivi, who was washing Colette's hair at the time, said that scars on the back were a disgrace for a knight. The young man replied that he was not a knight. Then Vivi wiped the floor off her forehead and said they were done. At that moment, Colette ran to Femme in the bathroom. They began to flounder in the water. Millet told Alfred that she had finished having his back. The young man thanked the girl. However, she came up to him from the front and said that she would now wash him from the front. Alfred said that he could actually wash himself from the front. The girl smiled and told him that he did not need to hold back. The boy thought that Millet's fingers were cool and so relaxing. He then snatched the washcloth from her and told the girl to look that he could wash himself, so everything was fine. At that moment, Vivi called Alfred and told him to wash her back because it was a great honor for him. The boy does not understand why he should do it. Millet came to Vivi and said that she would wash Vivi's back too. The girl replied that she only came because she wanted Alfred to wash her back. The girl said that maybe next time he would do that. Vivi chuckled and Alfred thought that he was saved, so he thanked Vivi in his mind. After a while, he sits in the bath and enjoys the warmth of the water. The young man looks up and thinks that heaven is very close. He feels his knee recovering. Suddenly, Colette turns to him and asks if the boy's knee still hurts. Alfred agrees but says that the pain is bearable. Colette excitedly says that if the mister's knee hurts, then she will give him a massage. Alfred thanked Colette and said he was feeling much better. The girl smiled. It was bearable, but his knee still hurt. Come to think of it, an old man in a bar who was a former adventurer once told a young man that his joints hurt mainly in bad weather. The hero is sure that his pain is also related to this, but he can still lead an ordinary life, but being an adventurer was difficult. If a battle were to begin, even someone like him, who could read the weak points of even the smartest opponents, might end up being the most vulnerable in the group. Besides, no one will ever be able to relax like that during an adventure. At one point, Colette gets up from the bath and runs away. The girl screams that she is too hot, so she gets out. Millet shouts to the girl to wait for her. Alfred stops them and says that he will look after her, so since Vivi and Millet finally have a chance, they should relax. Millet says that in that case, they will take the boy up on his offer. After a while, Millet said that the hot springs were really amazing, and they were very healing. Then she takes Colette and says that when she finishes cooking dinner, she will call them. Alfred thanked the girl. Alfred was then distracted by Femi. Off to the side, he saw the village elder thanking the men for their help. The young man approached the elder and asked if he could possibly have some business with them. The elder of the village agreed. He said that he had a request, but this request was for Vivi. The girl was surprised and asked what the elder wanted. The man says it's hard for him to say this, but he's discussed it with everyone. They would be very grateful to the girl if she used her enlargement magic on the cow again. Alfred was very surprised. The young man thought that of course she would just grow twice as big and not look like Mufi, but he apologized to the elder and said that this was something they could not help them with. The man apologized for the disturbance. Alfred thought that of course it was much more convenient to raise big cows, but Vivi was deeply depressed because of that incident. The girl turned to Alfred and asked him why he had refused them. Even if they were going to refuse them, she should do it. The young man apologized to the girl. Vivi turned to the elder and then said that it was not a problem at all. Alfred was very surprised. The man asked if it was really okay. Alfred took the girl by the shoulder and said that she shouldn't force herself. After all, he is an experienced mage, so he could probably imitate the girl, although it might be a bit troublesome. Vivi smirked. After all, the boy called himself an experienced mage. The girl asked him who he thought she was. She is one of the 4 heavenly rulers of the Demon King's army. She is a genius magician. Alfred wondered if it was right that she called herself a genius, although he was just worried about her. He said that if the girl needed help, she could just tell him. Vivi said there was no need, but Alfred asked if she was sure. Vivi looked embarrassed and then said that she couldn't say that the boy couldn't help. She thought that the boy could watch just in case. Alfred says that in that case he thinks he can learn from her. Vivi smiles and says that's great. The next day, the young man went to the farm with Vivi and Femme to start work. They were met by Millet, who asked Vivi if she would be okay. Vivi sat down on the grass and called them inferior beings, then added that they didn't have to worry about the Demon King's army's heavenly sovereign. She begins to draw a magic circle. Alfred, looking at Vivi, thought that Vivi had come to terms with the incidents with Mufi. Now he feels relieved to see Vivi's smiling face. He thinks that they have now returned to their normal way of life. It hasn't been long since Alfred volunteered to be the guardian of Murg village, and the village's problems have mostly been resolved now, so he is enjoying his life in retirement. However, the young man understands that he has too much free time. He sits and does nothing. The boy asks Femi if she wants to play for a while. He throws balls and says that if Femi brings it to him, he will reward her. Femi runs after the ball, and Vivi, who was drawing on the ground, tells Femi that she is raising dust. Alfred thought that Fem's canine instincts were kicking in as she was completely feral. At that moment, Vivi smirked and said that, after all, she was just a wild dog. She asks Alfred to look at these circles. These magic circles are designed for offensive magic, but by using this exquisite concealment technique, the boy can move secretly. The boy realizes that they look quite cleverly made. Then Femi brings the ball and the boy pats her on the head and tells her that she is doing a good job. Vivi is angry that Femi interrupted their conversation. Then Femi deliberately erased the magic circle that Vivi had drawn with her tail. The girl became very angry and she and Femi started fighting. Alfred, who was watching all this, told them to control themselves. Fem approached Vivi and started licking her. The girl said that she would stink of dog. Alfred, watching Fem and Vivi, began to laugh. He thought that he was happy with his life. Already at night, when everyone was asleep, Fem opened her eyes and began to get up. The young man woke up from her rustling and said that if she needed to go to the toilet, she should hurry up and go. Femi replied that it was not the matter. Then the young man noticed Femi wagging her ear. He got up from the bed and asked Femi what was wrong. At that moment, Vivi also got up from the bed and, rubbing her eyes, said that she wanted to sleep. Alfred told Vivi to go to sleep. Femi interrupted him and said that she had been called. She asked if the boy had heard them. Alfred did not understand what Femi was talking about, and then the she-wolf said that she had heard the howling of her brothers. Alfred listened but said he heard nothing. Fem replied that something seemed to have happened. She asked the young man if she could take a short vacation. Alfred lit the lamp and asked Femi if he could help her with anything. Going out of the house, Femi said that the young man could take her home. She looked up at the sky and said it was her duty as a king, her duty as Fem. Then Femi grew in size. The boy said that it seemed like an eternity since he had seen Femi's form. The wolf said she would be back soon, tomorrow for lunch to be exact. Alfred told Femi to let him know if she had any problems. When he first met her, she had seemed weak and emaciated, but now Femi looked fearless and strong. Femi began to rub her nose against the boy. Alfred said he would be fine so she could go. Femi agreed and set off. The boy was left alone, watching his friend's disappearing silhouette. He waited until Femi had disappeared, then blew out the candle and returned to his bed. The young man went to bed but could not fall asleep. He thought that all the magical wolves had grown up, so Femi said it was okay to leave them alone. However, Femi being called must mean that something serious had happened. Suddenly, Alfred has a dream. Vivi wakes him up. The young man jumped up and asked her to stop because he was already up. Vivi asked what happened. The boy was moaning as if he had a nightmare. Alfred said, grabbing his head with his hands, that he seemed to have had a bad nightmare. Then Vivi started looking around and said that Alfred was moaning from a nightmare. She expected nothing less from a lesser creature. Then Vivi asked where the little dog had gone. Alfred said that something had happened to her pack, so she had returned to the forest. Alfred wondered if Vivi would be excited to hear this, but in the end, she was afraid of Femi. Then the young man got up and began to dress. He had breakfast with Millet and the others and, as usual, went on duty. The young man sat at the gate to the village, and nearby Vivi was drawing magic circles. Memories of Femi playing ball suddenly came flooding back. The boy sighed. Vivi asked him if he was worried about the dog. Alfred replied that she had said she would be back for dinner. Vivi asked if that meant the boy had nothing to worry about. Alfred hesitantly said that he thought so. Then Vivi called him and told him to look. Alfred asked what kind of magic circle it was. Then Vivi said that it was a magic circle that would protect the boy from nightmares if he drew it on his forehead. The girl said that she invented it herself. Alfred thought that Vivi was probably worried about him to some extent. After a while, he noted all the residents who were coming and going in the village. He thought that today, too, there was nothing unusual. Then, looking down the forest path, he stood up and closed the shutters at the village gate. Night had already fallen, and the young man began to think. Millet came out to the boy and said that his food was ready so he could go to the table. The boy thanked the girl. Then Colette ran up to the boy and asked the mister that Femi was not coming home. The young man agrees and thinks that she is just busy. He hopes that Fem will not encounter any problems. He adds and says that she is the magical wolf king, so he is sure that she will be okay. After some time, the young man finished his portion. He thanked Millet and said that today it was also very tasty. Millet thanked the young man for the praise. Suddenly there was a barking sound, and Fem's huge head climbed into the room. The she-wolf was wagging her tail cheerfully. Colette rushed to Fem and began to hug her. Alfred greeted Fem and said that she was a little late home. The she-wolf exhaled and said that she needed the young man's help. Alfred was surprised and then told Fem to leave it to her. He asked her why she didn't rest, but Fem said they didn't have much time. Alfred said he would be ready in a jiffy, and he suggested Fem have a drink in the meantime. The young man then got dressed and said he was ready to leave. Fem said she would explain the situation as they ran. Vivi stopped them and said that she would go too. Fem and Alfred turned around and were surprised by this. Then the young man helped the girl climb on Fem. He thought that Vivi was an exceptional mage and that she could be useful. He offered to go with her, but Fem gave her a lift so that she wouldn't sit down. Vivi told Fem to take her too. Alfred told Fem that he understood that nothing could be done if she refused, but Vivi could help too. Fem said she would make an exception because it was an emergency. Vivi thanked Fem. Millet and Colette remained to wait for the trio. They wished them to return quickly, safe and sound. They promised to do so and then set off on their journey. Alfred then asked Fem what they should do. Fem said that an enemy had appeared that she could not deal with alone. Vivi smirked and said that it was such a sad thing, but it was still obvious because Fem was just a dog. Alfred thought that even though Vivi was afraid of her, it didn't stop her from making fun of Fem. He then asked Fem what kind of enemy they were dealing with. Femi replied that their enemy was the great immortal dragon. Alfred frowned. The dragon is the most powerful beast. Moreover, if it is a great one that is an adult, then it is not even worth talking about its enormous strength. Plus, it is also undead. It will be able to move even if it is dealt fatal damage. Even if the boy smashes his skull and heart, he won't stop moving. To defeat him, they'll have to cut off all his limbs and burn them to ashes. He knows it will take them a long time. In an instant, Vivi cringed. Alfred asked her if she was okay and didn't have to go with them. Vivi asked what the young man was saying. She laughs and says that someone like the great immortal dragon is no match for her. The young man realized that Vivi was terribly afraid. Then after a while, Fem stopped. The boy asked if this was the place, to which Fem replied in the affirmative. She led them to sharp mountains. Suddenly, Vivi felt something and, looking into the thicket of the forest, saw many glowing eyes. Vivi was scared, but Femi said that they were her followers. The young man asks what their situation is. Femi says she will explain everything. Last night, an immortal dragon suddenly attacked alone. Her magical wolves tried to repel the attack, but they failed, so they asked her for help. However, at that moment, a large number of small undead dragons appeared, causing them to fail, and so Femi turned to the young man. Alfred looked around the area, where there were many bodies of small dragons. The young man said that even though the dragons were small, to think that they could defeat 3 undead dragons. He said that the flock was quite amazing. Femi said that she could fight alone, but there would be casualties, so she turned to the boy. Femi is the magical king of wolves, and she must protect a pack of magical wolves, so she bows her head and asks people for help. Alfred thinks that he can't say that Femi can win, but he can say that she can fight. She clearly understands the difference in strength between her and the enemy. That is why, as a king, she bows her head to protect her flock. Alfred says that Fem is a great king, so she should raise her head. He smiles and asks her to leave it to them because they will help. Vivi tells Femi to just be confident and count on them. The boy then looks around the mountains and says it's pretty quiet. Fem says it looks like the dragons are heading towards Fem Forest. Alfred says that there is a village called Murg near the Fem Forest, so we can say that he is doing his job as a guard. He strokes Fem's fur and asks the pack to leave the huge dragon to him, and they, the wolves, must go and fight back as long as they can. Vivi asked what she should do. Alfred said that the girl could do as she knew because he trusted her completely. Vivi turned and ran, saying that she understood. The boy then begins to use magic. He calls upon the Queen of Fire, who rules the fiery heavens. Then he calls upon the Prince of Demons, who rules hell. The boy asks them to open the gates of purgatory with the holy key. He then turns to the Lord of the Sun and the Earth and asks them to burn away the impurities of this world with their hellish flames of eternal darkness. He announces and says that his name is Alfred Lint. Then a huge wave spreads across the surrounding area and everything is struck by a huge flame. Vivi does not understand what this huge force is. Alfred looks at the burning mountains and asks the dragon how he feels about this. He held back his magic power so as not to burn the forest, but what will happen next? Then the young man sees the huge dragon and realizes that he was unable to turn it into ashes, but nothing less could be expected from the great dragon. Not only has he turned into a zombie, but he also has a magical barrier around himself. The boy then notices the small dragons and realizes that the small dragons also survived because they hid in the shadow of the great dragon. Alfred shouts and says that everyone must give it their all and they must act as planned. All the wolves rush into battle. The wolves rushed into battle and began to attack the small dragons with their sharp jaws. Alfred used magical spears. In addition to combat use, their speed is commendable. He launched magical spears straight at the dragon, but realized that the magical barrier had reflected them. At this moment, the huge dragon looks straight at the young man. Alfred uses the magic spears again, calling it the second round. At that moment, the dragon turns around and breaks the nearest trees. The young man flies to the side, but his magical spears create a crack in the dragon's barrier. The young man then stands on the ground and activates the magical spears again, calling it the third round. The spears shoot straight towards the dragon. They break through the magical shield and pierce the dragon's body. The monster lets out a terrifying scream and then begins to shake in pain. Alfred realizes that he still feels pain even though he is undead. Then it is quite pathetic, so he must finish him off quickly. At that moment, the wolves were tearing the small dragons apart in a heap. Alfred realized that the small dragons had suddenly started running towards the big dragon. The big dragon started to fly away. At that moment, Vivi activated her magic circle and shouted that the dragon would not escape. She shouted for him to say hello to her wind blades. At that moment, a large number of wind blades began to attack the dragons flying directly above them. The wind blades cut off the dragon's limbs. He fell with great force right on the ground. Alfred thought that his barrier was gone and he didn't seem to have the strength to restore it. He said that this was the end of the dragon and then thrust his magic spear. Vivi shouted that it was still moving. The boy activated his flame on his hand and told the dragon to sleep peacefully. And then he set it on fire to destroy it completely. Femme watched the flames, then she howled, declaring victory. Her pack took up the king's howl and began to howl as well. Alfred thought about how Femme and the other wolves had begun to howl now that they had confirmed the dragon's death by incineration. The young man smiled and wiped the sweat from his face. It was already morning and they had won this battle. In total, the heroes defeated one great dragon and 20 small dragons. His thoughts were interrupted by Vivi, who said that this was very sad. These proud dragons have become undead, or rather zombies if we come to that. Alfred agrees with the girl and says that this is a pitiful sight. He thinks that zombification magic is an absolute taboo, but who could do such a thing then? If the target is hit by this spell, they will lose control of their body and become a living corpse. Along with their consciousness when they were still alive, they become a puppet with zero control over their body. He places his hand on his chest and bows so that the dragons may rest in peace. He then turns to Vivi and tells her to hurry up and get the remains. He is sure that Millet and Colette are already worried. Vivi laughs and says that she will help too then. They began to cut up the dragon. Alfred turned to the girl and asked her why she went with him today. Vivi was scared by this question. She hesitated for a moment, then said that she just thought she could make these wolves owe her a favor. She laughed and said that now they were her debtors and she did not worry about them at all. The young man laughed. He thought about how Vivi seemed to be worried about Femma too. He pats her head and tells her that she did a great job. Vivi started getting angry and playfully hitting Alfred. At that moment, Fem asked them if they were going back to the village. After a while, Millet was yawning outside Alfred's house. Suddenly, she heard something and ran to the entrance of the village to see. Millet saw Fem, Alfred, and Vivi calling for the girl. Vivi asked if they were expecting them. Millet smiled and greeted. The boys said that they had arrived home. Colette immediately ran to Fema to hug her. Colette was happy to see Fem again, then she hugged Alfred and greeted her. Vivi asked Millet if they had been waiting for them all this time and hadn't gone to bed since they had huge circles under their eyes. Millet laughed and said that they had caught them. They had been waiting for them all this time without their knowledge. Alfred apologized and said that he thought he had disturbed them, but in any case he thanked the girls. Alfred smiled and thought that it was great that it was all over and everything was okay. He thought that after all this he should take a little break. In any case, he didn't want to strain himself now. After a while, Vivi was drawing a magic circle and asked Alfred what he was doing. The young man replied that he was simply sorting out things in his bag. Femi was lying next to him and yawning. They are distracted by Millet, who calls Alfred and says that she has brought the elder. The man greets them and asks if they have any request for him. Alfred thanked the elder for coming. He then said that he wanted to show him something first. Alfred pulled out the great dragon's head from his inventory. The man was so surprised that his eyes almost popped out of his head. The man can't take it anymore and falls to the ground. He doesn't understand what's happening. Alfred says that, in fact, last night he received many things from 20 dragons. However, when he takes out the horn, he says that they are quite large and heavy. He called the elder to ask if there was a place for all this that he could rent to store these things. They were in his bag, but it was not necessary to always carry so many things with you. The man asks if these are really all dragon remains. Alfred agrees. Then he realizes that it is true that some people in the world believe that dragons are divine beings. Maybe the elder is one of them. He apologizes to the man and says that they were undead and he had no choice. The man says that is not the case at all. He smiles and says that Alfred is simply amazing. He just can't believe that the boy just killed so many dragons in one night. He says that it is certain that Alfred is the protector of the village of Murg. The boy laughs and thanks the man for the praise. Millet interrupted them and said that it was true, and the elder was absolutely right that Alfred was simply amazing. Alfred thanked Millet. Vivi asked what they were even talking about since she had done most of the work. Alfred thinks that not many people can destroy so many dragons. Only a powerful group or a small number of veteran adventurers like the young man can do it. The elder tells him never to overdo it. Usually meeting a dragon can only mean death. Alfred says he understands and will be more careful. The elder said that regarding the warehouse, he thought that there was a plot of land outside the village that the young man could use at his own discretion. Alfred says that this is just wonderful and they will build a warehouse there. After some time, the young man, in combat readiness, begins to perform magic. He asks if the men remembered that he can use magic to build the foundation and assembly, but only to a certain extent. If they have any problems, they can come to him. Alfred said that it seemed that magicians really did find it much easier to do carnal things. The man who carried the boards said that the young man was right. After 3 days of helping the carpenters with the construction, they finally finished building a warehouse for Alfred. Alfred said that this interior is amazing. Thanks to Vivi's magic, it is not only strong but also has a capacity greater than one would think. Vivi said that this was the hand of a master. This was not some wild battle magic for the young man. For this, she had to draw a perfect, elegant magic circle. Vivi asked the boy if perhaps he should become a carpenter. Alfred said that the girl thought so too. Vivi says that this is where they will keep all their valuables, so it needs to be guarded. The boy asks if this is really necessary. Vivi agrees. She smirks and says with a wink that she has it all planned out. Alfred asks if that's true. The next day, Vivi was reading a book about magic circles. Alfred asked the girl why she had suddenly become so shy. Vivi smirked and told the boy to just wait and watch as she did everything with her excellent skills. Then Millet came into the room and called Alfred. The girl asked if the young man would help her gather herbs. Alfred said he agreed and there were no problems. Millet thanked the young man and said that it was time for them to go then. At that moment, Fem barked, saying that she would also go with them. Alfred then asked Vivi if she would go with them. Vivi declined and said that she was preparing something. After some time, the young man asks Millet if she smells something unpleasant. The girl agrees with the young man and says that she is right. Millet says that the herbs they are looking for have a foul odor. She then tells the young man to cover his nose with a rag. Millet says she's going. Alfred agrees. Suddenly Femme starts sniffing and Alfred asks if she's okay. Femme says it smells so good and so strong here. Alfred says he doesn't know if humans and wolves have different senses of smell, and then he asks why Femme is sniffing him. He asks Femme to stop doing that, then Millet comes to them and says she's done. Alfred says it was quick. The girl says she only needed a little. The young man then suggested that the girl get ready. Suddenly, someone touched Alfred's cloak and asked if he could have it for a minute. Alfred was surprised because he did not feel anyone's presence. He never thought that someone could get so close to him without him noticing. He understands that he is definitely not an ordinary person. At this point, Millet turns around and asks the stranger if he needs anything. The stranger says he's a little lost. He asks if Alfred and Millet know where the village of Murg is. The stranger smiles in a way that makes you feel uneasy. The hero's team is a squad of 4 S-class adventurers who destroyed the Demon King once and for all. Alfred is a veteran mage. There is also Luca, a wise warrior, Juliana, a valuable healer, and there is a genius blessed by the Holy Spirit, who is called Hero Kurz. Alfred doesn't understand what he's doing here. He understands that he needs to change his voice first. He will make him leave even if he has to use force. It will be very unpleasant if. At this point, Kurz approaches the young man and asks what happened to him. Alfred, with a changed voice, replies that nothing happened. Kurz starts to fidget and asks if they have met before. Alfred replies that they have not met. He does not think so. Kurz says he feels like they've met before. Alfred realizes the boy suspects him. He doesn't understand what's wrong with him and what he can do to mislead Kurz. Then he remembers something and, turning away, thinks that this should work. He turns around with a beard on his face and says that the boy said he was looking for the village of Murg. They can show him the way. He is glad that he still has a bushy beard for the party. Kurz is surprised and embarrassed, tells the boys to take care of him. Alfred thought that it was very good that Kurz was so naive. At this point, Millet didn't understand what was going on. She said she thought they should go home. She called Alfred by his shortened name, but he said his name was Ral. The boy then tells Kurz that the girl's name is Millet. The girl is surprised. Then Alfred turns to her and asks if that's not true. Millet is surprised and Alfred thanks her for understanding. After a while, Alfred apologizes to Kurz for making him walk while he rides his pet. He just has an injured leg. The young man says he doesn't mind. The girl then says that her name is Millet and she is from the village of Murg. Alfred says that his name is Ral. The young man thanks them for their kindness. The girl says her name is Cruz Kandaren. He is here to kill the undead dragons that have infested this area. Millet is surprised and then looks at Alfred, who says that it is very terrible and then gestures to Millet. Kurz says that all of this is true. The undead dragons were created by a dark mage who is probably one of the survivors of the Demon Lord's army. Alfred is worried about the dark mage. Kurz tells him not to worry because they have already taken care of them. They built a base in the western cities, and then the young man begins to boast that he found them. The undead dragons were ordered to attack the royal table, which is why they were asked to destroy the mages. Alfred thinks it makes sense. If you draw a straight line from the western mountains to the royal capital, it will pass through the Femme forest and the village of Murg. He knew that all the dragons were already dead, but he didn't know how to explain it to him. At that time, Kurz said that instead of participating in the main event, he would be here to protect the village of Murg. Millet said that was encouraging. Alfred doesn't know how to tell the boy that the village guards have already taken care of these dragons. He can't say that the threat has already passed. Millet says that Kurz is very good for a boy his age and he is quite strong. Kurz says that it may be because of his training. So they reach the village and Alfred notices that it is somehow lively here. Suddenly, he notices something. The young man screams about what happened to his house. It was all burned down. Alfred asks a resident what is going on. The man answers that the stranger attacked him and Vivi tried to protect him. At that moment, Vivi stood and in front of her was a girl. Kurz recognized her as Luca. The girl at that moment began to take out her sword and Vivi prepared to cast magic. A young man stood between them. Luca sent him away. Vivi apologized to Alfred and said that she tried to stop her, but the girl went crazy. Alfred realized that it might have been Vivi who burned the house down, or that the girl had released some kind of combat magic and blown it up. He is surprised that the hero and the warrior came together. He then tells Luca, asking for forgiveness, that this girl may be a demon, but she is not a bad demon. The girl said that she does not care whether she is a demon or not. Luca yelled that Vivi was trying to create a giant undead bull. Vivi said it was just a skeleton. She said that this was no place for strange people who couldn't even tell the difference between a normal skeleton and the undead. However, Luca shouted that this circle was huge. Alfred thought that everything made sense now. That's why Vivi was desperate. Vivi tried to resurrect Mufi as a skeleton and ordered him to guard the warehouse. Luca said that she did the right thing by destroying that magic circle because it was a real monster. Vivi got angry and shouted at the girl to take back her words and not dare to call Mufi a monster. Alfred said that from what he knows, some countries use dragon and human skeletons in their armies. He thinks there is not much difference between a human skeleton and an ox skeleton. The souls of the dead are defiled, causing them to turn into skeletons. Skeleton souls are temporary and bound to their owner. Skeletons can also be partners of humans. Luca shouted that this could be so. She was interrupted by other voices of residents who said that Vivi was not bad. They also pointed out that the girl was young, but she already had a bad character. The city was a terrible place. Then Cruz intervened and asked Luca what was going on. The girl was happy because Cruz had so unexpectedly separated from them, and now it turned out she was already here. However, in any case, it didn't matter now. Luca points to Vivi and says that she is the fifth of the 4 heavenly kings of the Demon King's army, and now she is in a place like this. They must kill her. Alfred thought the situation was serious. When did this 5th of the 4 heavenly kings manage to become famous? Luca said that without a doubt she was going to resurrect the Demon King's army as the last of the heavenly kings. She was going to take over the imperial capital with the help of the giant bull. Cruz realizes that in that case it's time to clean up the place. Alfred realizes that the situation is just awful. Warrior Luca is the brains of the team. He can't even imagine its strength. Also, he doesn't even mention Krug, who is a heroine chosen by God. They would definitely lose if a fight broke out. Alfred asked them to wait and asked if he could talk to them. At that moment, Vivi shook off his hand that was covering her and stepped forward. Alfred shouted that this was just madness. Suddenly, all the children of the village lined up in front of Vivi and covered her with their hands. The children shouted that Vivi was not bad and asked not to touch Vivi. Vivi was very touched and thanked the children. Cruz was surprised and then touched. She said that if the children said so, then Luca should leave Vivi. The girl was very surprised. Cruz put away her sword at that moment and ran towards the children. Alfred thought that Cruz was like that as usual. She was not so kind-hearted, but she had a soft spot for children. At that moment, Krug suggested that the children play together. Because of her carefree attitude, others think that she is easy to defeat, but he is sure that Luca will not give up so easily. At this point, the girl sighed and said that it seemed that nothing could be done. Alfred said they were very sorry from the bottom of their hearts. Luca said all they asked was that they keep their skeletal bull. Vivi said she understood. Then Luca smiled nervously and called the magician with the fake beard and told him to come here. The young man smiled awkwardly and greeted her. Then they came to the boy's barn. Alfred turned to the warrior and asked what she wanted. Suddenly the girl slammed her hand right next to the boy's head. She smiles and asks the girl if she really thinks she is so stupid. The boy apologizes to the girl. Luca asked if it could really be called a touching reunion. Alfred asked the girl when she realized it was him. Luca replied that she had known since Cruz had drawn her sword and the boy was thinking about taking off his fake beard. Alfred said that, surprisingly, he had not been discovered. Luca agreed and said that they hadn't discovered him right away. His voice was different too. Then the girl changed the subject and asked how the boy's knee was. Alfred replied that everything is fine and here in the village of Murg there is an onsen, which is a healing type. Luca said that she understood, but in that case everything is fine. Alfred smiled and asked if the girl was really worried about him. He thanked her. Luca looked embarrassed and asked why. He thought that, as always, her reaction gave her away. Alfred asked how things were in the royal capital, yet he went away without saying a word. Luca asked if the boy was really worried about it just now. She asked how much trouble he thought he had caused her. Luca says it's not like she objected. The young man accepted the Adventurers Guild's request, but she kept it a secret from the others. She became the general manager of the royal capital, so it was quite easy for him. The young man said that the girl had advanced in her career. The reason no one had found him yet, because Luca had been helping him from behind the scenes all this time. He should thank her better. Alfred said that the fact that he was here in this village. Luca replied that she knew everything, but she did not come here to see him. The boy asked if it could be because of the dragon. Luca said it was true. Alfred said it was also to finish off the survivors of the Demon King's army. Then Luca asked the boy to wait a minute because it was confidential information. She asked the boy how he found out. Alfred said he asked Cruz. Luca said she was just stupid and the girl would deal with it later. The girl said about the undead dragon, not to mention that this great undead dragon also there are quite a lot of less powerful ones. This is problematic. She says that then she will have to ask the young man for help. Alfred says that as for that they have already taken care of him. Then he opens the door of the warehouse. Luca said that it turns out she came here just like that. The boy says that it turns out that way. Then the girl says that it is the fang of a lower dragon. The girl then says that there are about 20 of them here. Alfred replies that this is absolutely true. Luca asks if it wasn't hard for the boy. Alfred says Vivi and Femme helped him. Luca thinks about one of the 4 heavenly kings of the Demon King's army. Then Cruz asked Luca through the window how long she would be there. Then Cruz went into the warehouse and was very surprised. Luca added that apparently the work here was already finished. Alfred then shows his beard and tells Cruz that they haven't seen each other for a long time. Cruz is surprised and says that this old man was actually Alfred all this time. Alfred thought that he was worried about her trusting him. Cruz asked Alfred what he was doing there since he was always moving from place to place. Then they chatted for a long time. Cruz says the boy came to the village to heal his knee. Alfred asks Luca why the girl lied to her. Luca said that if she had told her the truth, she would have definitely followed her. Cruz said that it was natural because she would go to the ends of the earth for Alfred. Cruz thought about moving to Murg village too. She would train with Alfred and become even stronger. The young man said that it was definitely not in the middle of his recovery. Luca interrupted them and said that she had already told Krug that if the hero abandoned his work, many people would be in trouble. Alfred said that if the hero leaves the royal capital, people will worry and rumors will spread. However, they can safely come here and hang out whenever they want. Cruz says that if Alfred says so, then she should listen to him. The young man replies that then the 2 of them can stay the night. However, he looks at his house and says that he completely forgot that his house burned down. Cruz says that then they will all set up camp together. Luca said she would probably hold off. Alfred said he agreed with Luca on that. It looked like the village of Murg would become a little more lively. Luca asked why Cruz liked living in tents so much. Cruz said it was a lot of fun. At that moment, Alfred's comrades were watching them and wondering what they were talking about. Luca bowed low and said she was terribly sorry for the inconvenience. The villagers were surprised, and the elder smiled sweetly. Alfred told the villagers to listen. These are his friends, or better said, these are his former allies. They are very trustworthy, and they regret what they did, so he asks if they could kindly forgive them. Luca said that as soon as she saw this huge magic circle, she decided to stop it at all costs. The men said, smiling sweetly, that such things happen. The village chief asked Luca to raise his head. Since they were Alfred's friends, they were happy to welcome guests to their village. Alfred smiled awkwardly. Luca sighed in relief and thanked the village chief. Cruz also smiled and said that it was very cool. Luca turned to her with a murderous aura. Cruz asked the girl why she was staring at him so carelessly. Luca hugged Cruz and told her to go and apologize for pulling out her sword. Alfred thought about how he had not revealed Luca and Cruz's true identities. If it was revealed that they were the hero and warrior who had subdued the Demon King, they would become important people. The villagers would be embarrassed, and these 2 would not like it. The village elder turned to Alfred and asked him what he was going to do today. Alfred thought that since his house had burned down, he was planning to spend the night in the barn with everyone else. The village elder cried out and said that he would not allow the young man and their precious guests. Alfred told him not to worry about him. Is interrupted Millet and said that they could stay with them until their house was completely rebuilt. The elder said that was a good idea. After all, Millet had quite a spacious house. Alfred asked the girl if she was sure. Millet smiled and said that it was more than sure. Then Alfred said that she would take advantage of her position. At that moment, Colette was smiling, walking next to Cruz. Cruz asked why the girl was in such a good mood. Cruz said she was really looking forward to spending the night at Colette's house. The girl smiled and said she was looking forward to it too. They enter the house. Luca asks the hosts to take care of them. Millet asks them to make themselves at home. Alfred said that they were here as freeloaders so they could ask them to do something. Millet invited Alfred and told him not to be shy and to come in. After a while, Colette hugged Femi and asked her to start having fun with her. At this time, Alfred asked Luca what was wrong with their doctor and why there were only 2 of them. Luca said that Juliana had caught the mumps. Luca said that there was an epidemic in the capital. She had also suffered from it when she treated other people. Alfred told the girls to give Juliana his best wishes. Luca and Cruz thanked the young man. Millet, who approached them with a tray, asked if Luca and Cruz were really Alfred's friends. Cruz agreed and said that he had deceived them with his disguise. Everyone began to laugh. Then the boy said something and turned to Vivi, who was standing in the doorway and hiding. Alfred asked the girl why she didn't join them. Vivi said that the warrior had prevented her from reviving Mufi. Luca apologized to the girl once again. Then Vivi became embarrassed and said sheepishly that it was because of her that Alfred's house burned down. She asked him for forgiveness. Alfred turned to Vivi and said that there was nothing to worry about. Even if she had failed, he was the one who ordered the fire, so he suggested that the girl return to Mufi tomorrow. Vivi was embarrassed and sat down at the table. Luca said that she didn't really distinguish zombies from skeletons by their magic circle. She admits that she is guilty, but if the 4 heavenly kings from the Demon King's army had revived the dead, the girl would have stopped them anyway. Alfred said that Luca was right. He thought that Luca was a warrior, but the fact that she could read magic circles was very impressive. Then the young man interrupts Luca and Cruz. He says that he wants to clarify something. The girls are surprised and begin to listen attentively to the young man. Alfred asked if Vivi was really one of the 4 heavenly kings. Luca was very surprised and asked if he was really asking that just now. Vivi asked him how many more times he had to repeat himself. Luca asked if he had forgotten how they had fought her last time. Alfred thought he really thought she was some kind of brat. Cruz beamed and said that she had forgotten too, so the young man need not worry. Alfred thought that he had very conflicting feelings about this. According to Luke, as soon as they set foot on the Demon King's land, they captured a small fortress. It looked like Vivi was there, but they quickly overpowered her. The boy asked the girl what she was doing there. Vivi said she was tending the soil and the livestock. The land in the Demon King's territory becomes barren. The army accelerated its invasion because its main goal was to rob people for supplies. If Vivi hadn't fixed the situation, the battle would have been much harder. Vivi said that the boy was just lucky that he defeated her first. It was just incredible luck. Colette said that kings are really cool. Alfred watched the girl and said that it seemed that she was very confident in herself. And yet the girl was an excellent magician, even if she did all sorts of stupid things. Then the girl smelled a very delicious smell. She said it smelled very nice. At that moment, Millet said she had finished cooking. Everyone thanked the girl. Cruz said it was very healthy that they could now try the food that Millet had prepared. Cruz tried the pancake and said it was very tasty and just fantastic. Luca asked why the girl was alone in the forest. Cruz replied that she found a strange trail and followed it and accidentally separated from Luca. Luca said that the girl got lost, simply following the supposed trail of the Hydra. Alfred asked her what she meant by the Hydra. Vivi replied that the Hydra was a pretty dangerous monster. The Hydra is a creature with many heads and deadly poison. Its strength can be compared to a dragon. Luca added that she thought Cruz was mistaken. She had also checked the road, but she had found no trace of the Hydra. Cruz said with certainty that she was sure it was a Hydra. Alfred thought that Cruz might be a bit off, but her intuition never let her down. The young man told the girl that if she found her, he would help her. Cruz asked the young man for his concern. Then, after they ate, Millet said they could go to the hot springs. Cruz asked if they really had hot springs. Luca said she'd like to go too. Millet said she'd take them there right now. Millet then tells Alfred, Vivi, and Femi that she will be back soon, so they shouldn't worry or rush because she and Femi will be staying. Cruz grabbed Alfred and said that they hadn't bathed together in a long time. Alfred said that he didn't need it and that he would stay home. Cruz asked the young man if he really wouldn't go to the hot springs because he smelled of sweat. At this point, Millet began to shake and said that Alfred had been swimming with Cruz, and then asked if they had ever been together. Alfred said that if this could be called bathing, then he was a traveler and sometimes he had to overcome his shyness and wash himself quickly. He said that this was something else. They were traveling, so it was normal. Millet was saying at this point that she couldn't believe it. Vivi said that travelers were so shameless. Luca pulled Alfred and Cruz apart and said that they were no longer on the road and mixed swimming was unacceptable. Cruz said it would be more fun if everyone was together. Luca told Cruz to understand that it was embarrassing. Then the girls left and Alfred wished them a pleasant time. Cruz said that she was very sorry that Alfred was not going with them. After a while, the young man was walking with Femi after the hot springs. He said that they were just great today. The young man walked and looked at the sky and realized that today there would be a full moon. After some time, the young man returns. Millet meets him and tells him that dinner is almost ready. Alfred thanks the girl. Alfred then goes into the room where Vivi is sitting at a table drawing magic circles on paper. Luca and Cruz are playing cards while Colette watches them. The girls called the young man and invited him to play cards with them. Alfred smiled sweetly and felt some peace. Then they played cards and waited for Millet to cook dinner. After that, they waited for dinner and then all cleaned up and washed the dishes together. It was already late at night. Alfred was climbing the stairs and carrying the sleeping Colette to bed. Millet said that she had already made up the beds and that there were only 2 rooms. Colette reached out to Femi and said she would sleep with her. Millet said she and Colette would sleep on the floor so the guests could use the bed. Alfred said he wouldn't allow it. He was grateful that the girl let them stay, but they couldn't use the girl's bed. Millet said there was nothing wrong with that. Alfred said he thought it was right. At that point, Cruz thought about it. She interrupted the boys and said that she could sleep on the floor and then asked Alfred. The boy wondered why the girl was asking him. Cruz asks if she really can't do that. The boy says it's not that she can't. Cruz drags the boy along and says that then they will sleep here. She sits down on the floor and says that she hasn't slept next to Alfred for a long time. Alfred agrees with the girl's words. They were smiling. Alfred said they covered for each other during the trip and slept in shifts. Cruz added that the floor was even more comfortable. Luca sits down next to them and says that she is with them then. The next moment, Vivi came and said that it looks like a lot of fun. She told Femi that she can sleep alone. Millet said that no one would occupy the bed she had spent so much time preparing. Then she, as the mistress of the house, would decide everything for them. In the end, the bed was given to Fem, Colette, and her. The others took all the other beds. Alfred asked if everything was okay and if it wouldn't be a bit tight. Millet said it was okay, they had agreed on everything. Vivi added that despite what Millet said, she would still hit her that night. Millet awkwardly said that she didn't do that. After a while, Colette and Alfred went to bed. Colette stroked Fem and said that she always slept well next to Fem. Then they wished each other sweet dreams. Alfred couldn't sleep and thought that the Hydra had appeared here too, but everything was fine and he would protect the village. At that moment, somewhere deep in the forest, a Hydra was crawling and making its howling roar. After a while, the guard's work begins with the opening of the main gate. The young man stretches and sighs. Suddenly, he and Femi hear some barking. They turn around and see little puppies. Alfred said good morning to them. He asked the puppies where their parents were. Fem said that they had probably gone to catch their breakfast. When they rebuilt Alfred's house, several wolves moved in nearby. He is sure it was because they liked their scraps. Vivi then interrupted them and asked Alfred to help her with a resurrection spell for Mufi. Alfred agreed and said that he would help. Then Luca and Cruz interrupted them and said they were in on it too. Vivi said they had been secretly following her the whole time. Vivi asked Luca if they would really disturb her again. Luca answered in the negative. Luca said that she had already apologized for that, but if she was going to help, it wouldn't be logical to ask for something in return, although they would just look. Alfred says that they will all have breakfast first because Millet is waiting for them. He sends the girls away and adds that all business will take place after eating. Alfred asks Vivi if she minds if they all go see him. Vivi replies that if Alfred asked, she can't refuse. After a while, he got ready and followed Vivi. Vivi said that she only had 80% of the magic circle drawn. Last time, those two interfered and she had to destroy it. He then asks if the girl really works there and points to the place. Vivi agrees and asks what's wrong with that. Alfred starts shouting and says that it's dangerous to work in the middle of the village because the villagers might get scared. Vivi said that the boy was right. Then she added that she finally prepared it for Alfred to see. She wanted everyone to be happy with Mufi's resurrection, so the girl doesn't know what the boy is thinking. Cruz comes up to Vivi and tells her that everything is fine and that she understands her, and then tells the girl not to lose heart, because Luca also scolds her every day. Alfred pats Vivi on the head and says that this time she will be watching her from the very beginning, so he suggests the girl go to a bigger place. He asks the girl if she really wants to surprise everyone. Vivi is embarrassed and agrees with the boy. Then the girl starts waving her hands and asks the boy to stop petting her. She gets embarrassed and tells the boy to watch where the boy puts his hand. Vivi asks the girls again if they will really bother her again. Luca replies that they will not bother her. Then the girl goes to the field and Alfred says that he will watch from here. The girl agrees and runs away. Then she turns and waves to the boy. Vivi smiles and begins to draw a magic circle. Alfred asks if it is really that incredible. Luca asks the boy if there could be something wrong. Alfred says that there is nothing wrong and that it is simply amazing. Then Luca thinks and looks at Vivi, who is drawing a huge magic circle. Some time passes. Cruz was playing with Femi and asked her to bring the ball. At this point, Vivi was already sweating and then told Alfred to check her magic circle. The young man, who was already sitting on the ground, agreed. The boy said that he liked Vivi's idea and that he would never have thought of something like that. Vivi started to giggle. Alfred thought about how Vivi had taken her time drawing this complicated magic circle. He thought that Vivi was far superior to him in this matter. His gravity magic will hold the bones together. Now all preparations are complete. Vivi asked everyone to stay back until she is finished. Vivi placed her hands on her magic seal and closed her eyes. Suddenly, Mufi's skeleton began to gather while Vivi cast a spell. Luca and Cruz covered their faces with their hands to protect themselves from the strong wind. They were very surprised by what was happening. Alfred was also surprised. He thought about how Mufi didn't have vocal cords. She made sounds with her spiritual energy and it was very incredible. He shouted to Vivi that it worked. Vivi started crying and called out to Mufi. The girl ran straight to Mufi and Alfred shouted at the girl to stop and not go there. Vivi screamed that she didn't know how to make it up to her. Vivi apologizes to Mufi for hurting her. Vivi adds that she is very sorry. She screams at Mufi that if she can't forgive her, she can take revenge right now. Vivi continued to look at Mufi. Luca began to draw his sword and Alfred began to activate his magic. The young man thought that even if Vivi was willing to do this, he couldn't let her die in front of her. Suddenly, Mufi rubbed her nose against Vivi's face. The girl asked Mufi if she really forgave her. Mufi made a happy humming sound. Vivi cried with happiness, but then she wiped her tears. Alfred realized that it seemed like Mufi had forgiven Vivi. However, he was the one who killed her in the first place. Mufi turned to the boy and opened her jaw. Cruz and Luca were very surprised when the boy's body disappeared into Mufi's skull. The girls then ran up to Alfred and asked him if he was okay. Alfred smiled and said that Mufi had only bitten him a little. The boy pets Mufi and thanks her for coming back to them. Alfred, Vivi, and Femi began to pet Mufi happily. After some time, returning to the village, the women asked if the rumors were true and it was a giant skeleton of a bull. Alfred apologized for the show and said the skeleton was not dangerous, so they should not worry. The woman said she had never seen a skeleton move before, so necromancy was awesome. Then they come to the pen and Vivi says that this is now Mufi's new home and she wants Mufi to stay here. Suddenly, Mufi's legs gave way. Vivi told Mufi not to worry because she would always be there. As long as Mufi stayed close, everything would be fine. Then the puppies showed up. Alfred asked why the puppies were still there. Fem said it was very strange. Cruz asked what skeletons usually eat. Alfred replied that since they don't have a digestive system, they only need a little spiritual energy. Vivi said that was true. Since their bodies were created with magic, they live on it. Cruz said that she understood and then asked if it really wasn't hard for Vivi since Mufi was big. Vivi said it was a very complicated thing. She wasn't the only one supplying spiritual energy to Mufi's body. Cruz said she understood. Suddenly, the puppies started howling. Alfred asks Fem what is going on. The she-wolf answers that the wolves have found a hydra. Alfred smirked and said that the hydra had finally appeared. Cruz immediately drew her sword. Alfred thought that he had no other choice and would have to fight. Cruz smirked and said she wouldn't let the trail go again. This time she would see it through. Alfred panicked and asked Cruz if she could calm down a bit. Cruz agreed. Alfred turned to Fem, but the wolf replied that she already knew. Fem then changed into her true form and said that, after all, it was her job to protect the forest. Alfred turned to Vivi and told her to stay here in case the village was attacked. Vivi agreed and said that she and Mufi would keep an eye on things here. Alfred then mounts Fem and calls Luca and Cruz, then asks the girls if they are ready. Luca and Cruz agree. They set off. After a while, having gone deep into the forest, Femi howled and then began to listen to those who answered her. The she-wolf told Alfred the right direction and ran straight there. Then suddenly Alfred saw this huge hydra. Luca said it was even bigger than she thought. Alfred said that the girls should be careful because the hydra is poisonous. Suddenly Cruz rushed screaming straight at the hydra. Alfred ordered the girl to stop and not to attack headlong. Although Krug is a brave warrior, she is sometimes too reckless. However, even so, it is their duty to support her. The boy used magic and created a huge beam of light right above the hydra. The hydra covered its eyes and then its heads were cut off by Cruz's sword. Hydra used some kind of liquid and poured it right on Cruz. The girl tried to wipe the liquid off and said that it had some kind of terrible smell. Suddenly, someone grabbed the girl by the collar and pushed her aside. Cruz asked Luca what she was doing, but at that moment the hydra's head rushed past Cruz. Luca cut off the head and said that they had warned the girl about the poison, and then asked if she was really tired of living. Suddenly the girls were surprised because the heads of the hydra grew back. Luca started chopping them again and said that this hydra was behaving abnormally. Alfred, watching them, thought that Luca's words were true. Usually hydras need 3 days to regenerate. This is too fast a regeneration, so it is definitely not normal. Suddenly, Alfred turned to Luca and Cruz and yelled at the girls to continue chopping off her heads because he had an idea. He says he's going to try to burn her with his fire magic, so they should hold out until then. Cruz says they get the message. Luca tells Alfred to move fast because she can't hold out much longer. Cruz says the fun is starting. She is interrupted by Luca, who says she's not going to listen to someone covered in poison. At this time, Alfred orders Fem to go around the hydra. The she-wolf accepts the order and begins to carry it out. Alfred extends his arm and attacks the hydra with a fiery spear. Cruz and Luca are surprised that it works. Cruz beamed and told Alfred that it was great, but Luca told her not to relax. Cruz agreed and said that now they will definitely win because she can't hold back. Luca asked Alfred to cover her back. Alfred smiled and agreed, then said that they should finish off these heads. At that moment, Femi watched Alfred and realized that this was what Alfred's team was capable of. The hydra was destroyed and everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Femi realized that Alfred's group was indeed very strong. Alfred was happy that it worked and they succeeded. Suddenly Cruz smelled a delicious smell. Luca asked if she was the only one who smelled fried fish, but it seemed to be the smell of fried hydra. Cruz asked if that was true. Luca shouted that she was inedible. Suddenly they heard someone barking. Then Alfred saw the adult wolves. He said that they had done a good job too, and then thanked the wolves for finding the hydra as it made their job easier. The boy then thanks Femi, who is offended and pouts. He sees the wolves drooling and then asks them if they really want to eat the hydra. Cruz said she hadn't tried the hydra yet, but Luca shouted for the wolves to eat the hydra. Femi asks Alfred if they can eat the hydra. Alfred agrees and says he doesn't mind. Alfred says it's not very harmful. Luca is surprised and asks Alfred if he's ever tried hydra. Alfred said it was once when he was younger for scientific purposes, although he just felt like it. Cruz told Luca it was okay. Cruz said it looked so delicious and crispy. Alfred said he was warning the girl that it was very tasteless. Luca hears the wolves yapping and Cruz screaming that they will share. Cruz then offers to let Alfred butcher her. Luca was silent for a moment and then said that in that case she would return first. Alfred was surprised. After some time, the hydra meat was fried. The wolves began to eat and Cruz followed them. Alfred thought that when Cruz and the others ate meat like that, it looked delicious. After dinner, they collected some trophies and headed home. Luca said that she was lucky to get some valuable ingredients, so it was a big success. Luca asked Alfred if maybe they could go to a hot spring when they got back to the village. Alfred said that was a good idea. Suddenly Cruz cringed and said she was in pain. Luca asked about the girl's condition. Cruz said her stomach hurt. Alfred asked if Cruz was really sick since strong warriors like her rarely get sick. Luca said it was all because of the hydra. She asked the girl if she could walk. Cruz said she could walk but not so fast. Alfred grabbed Cruz by the shoulder and told the girl not to tire herself out and she would ride Femme. Cruz said she was fine and that the pain in her stomach wouldn't break her. Alfred said he thought she was going to faint. Alfred asked Femme if he could go with Cruz since the she-wolf was the queen of the wolves. Alfred told the girls to hurry up and he told Cruz to hold on tight. Then they went home. Cruz thanked Alfred. The young man at that moment thought that the hydra meat was tasty but not poisonous because he was convinced of this from his own experience, so he realized that something was unclean here. They then arrive at Millet's house and tell the girl that Cruz has a stomach ache. Millet says that it is a serious problem and she will make up the bed right away. After some time, Cruz is put to bed. The girl apologizes to Millet for disturbing her. Colette asks Cruz if she is okay. Cruz thanks her for her work. Millet asks the girl what unusual food she ate. Luca said directly that she ate the meat of the hydra. The girl wanted to stop Luca, but the girl said not to try to hide her stupidity. Cruz said that Femme ate too. Alfred said that he thought Femme was okay because she was a wolf. Millet said that according to Alfred, the hydra's meat is not poisonous as it releases all its toxins during battle. Perhaps the remains of them were in the meat she ate. Millet said she would prepare a medicine for stomach ailments and give an antidote just in case. If the young man wanted, she could prepare it for him, but he would have to wait. After some time, Millet returns with medicine. Alfred said that Millet was like a real master. Millet thanked the young man. Cruz drank the potion and said it was horrible and smelled horrible. Millet said it was medicine. Cruz continued to drink it, but it was too bitter. Then Luca came up to Cruz and asked how much more she would drink. Then Luca pinched Cruz's nose and poured the medicine into her open mouth. Alfred told Cruz that she had done well. Luca jokingly said that it would keep her away from the hydra meat. Cruz suddenly cried out that it seemed like the medicine was working. Luca said that was simply impossible. Then she said that it didn't matter because she had to lie down and rest. She also said that she would stay with her for a while. Cruz lies back down, but a second later jumps up and says she thinks it's better. Luca said she can't get better that fast, so she should lie down. Cruz jumps up again and says that she is better and she is sure of it. 10 minutes later, Alfred thinks that it was a terrible mistake to think that Cruz is a normal person. Millet said it was such a relief to see Cruz, Coletta, and Femme frolicking. It was all thanks to Alfred. Then Millet stretches and smiles, and then says that the country air is so refreshing today. Alfred sighs and smiles, saying that Millet is right. At that moment, Colette, Cruz, and Femme are frolicking on the grass in the sun. At that moment, deep in the forest, a small rabbit found the severed head of a hydra and ran up to it. Then he drank some strange liquid that flowed straight from the hydra's jaw. Suddenly, the rabbit felt a sharp pain and fell to the ground. After a while, Vivi looked after Mufi and then asked Alfred if it was okay since they had returned home in a hurry. Alfred agreed and said that Cruz was in critical condition, so they took her to Millet. Cruz shouted out that she was already perfectly fine. Alfred said that they got rid of the hydra, so now everyone is safe. Vivi said that was good and then said that it was also Vivi's doing. The girl beamed and said that it was only thanks to the village guards Vivi and Mufi that they were able to fight in peace. Alfred patted Vivi on the head and said that Vivi was definitely the best guard, then thanked her for her hard work. Vivi said that Mufi wanted to be petted too. Colette and Cruz rushed to Mufi, screaming that they loved her very much. Colette stroked Mufi and said that she was very smooth. Alfred said that it was all true. Cruz also said that Mufi was very nice. Suddenly Cruz's hands started glowing. Alfred asked the girl what the light was. Cruz doesn't understand what Alfred is talking about because she's just petting Mufi. Vivi panicked and told Cruz to stop it because she was doing something bad. Luca stopped Vivi and told her to stop because Cruz was not doing anything bad. Vivi asked Luca what was going on here. Luca replied that it might be the sanctification of the brave. Suddenly, a huge stream of light appeared. The entire village was irrigated with a beam of light. Suddenly, Vivi opened her eyes and was very surprised by what she saw. Mufi had become flesh. Vivi asked what it meant and if it was really Mufi. Cruz said that Mufi had become very beautiful. Alfred said about the consecration that it is a ritual in which the priest bestows sacred power on the armor. Luke agrees with the young man's assumption. Alfred asked if it was such a strong technique. Luca said that she had read about it in the taverns. This is not the great power of the priests. It is something like a traditional ritual. Alfred said that Cruz will be able to raise the lower ghosts at most. However, Cruz is special and has the power of a hero, which makes the technique many times stronger, thus turning it into the power of a god. Cruz laughed awkwardly. Alfred asked the girl what she had done. Vivi asked what had happened to Mufi. Luca said that it was some kind of sanctification of the undead. It meant that Mufi had become a holy bull. Then she realized something and said that Mufi had definitely become Saint Mufi. Cruz says she's sure she feels a holy aura from Mufi. Vivi says she gets it. Cruz says it's awesome anyway. Luca agrees and Coletta screams that she loves Mufi. Suddenly the wolf cub howled. Alfred said that for some reason the wolf cub seemed happy. Alfred asks Femi something but she is not there. Alfred asked Colette if she had seen Femi. Colette replied that she had not seen Femi since they had been there. Alfred said that Femi was good at hiding, but he wondered if anything was wrong. Then he turned towards the rustling noise and asked Femi where she had gone. Suddenly, Femi emerged from the forest, carrying a wolf in her fangs, and told Alfred that she needed his help. Alfred asked Femi if she was okay. Femi said that the wolf was deep in the forest and had the same symptoms as Cruz. Alfred said if the poison was really activated with a time delay. Then he decides that they will talk later and he will bring the wolves here and let Millet examine them. Alfred mounts Fem and orders Colette to bring Millet here. The girl runs away in a hurry and screams that she will bring her now. Vivi screams that she will create a magic circle of restoration. Femi said that Femi didn't actually eat the Hydra's meat. Alfred asked her why that was. Femi said that her minions came to the Hydra's body and they were very hungry, so she didn't eat it. Then they arrive at the place and Alfred sees a huge number of wolves lying on the ground. Hearing that Cruz was in danger, he forgot all about the wolves. The young man asks for forgiveness. Luca said that the young man could apologize later, but now they needed to get the wolves to the village. Alfred said that they would take care of them. Cruz drags 2 wolves at once and says she can handle the job. Luca says she's counting on the girl. Alfred said that Femi should just carry him and run. It will take a few minutes because he uses his magic. The young man then lifts up all the wolves and says that he will gather them all at once. No one can handle gravity magic so easily. Alfred was riding on Fem and carrying a lot of wolves with his magic. Cruz smiled and said that was expected of Alfred. Then they were already close to the village. Millet, Coletta, and Vivi called everyone here. Vivi said that she drew a magic circle to ease their pain, but they will not give much effect. Vivi said her magic wasn't enough. Femi said their symptoms were stomach pain, vomiting, and weakness. Millet examined the wolves and said that she understood and these symptoms were very similar to Cruz's. Millet said that she would prepare the medicine, so she asked to wait a minute. Alfred thanked the girl. Femi said that she did something wrong. This also has to do with Femi's self-confidence and pride, who is the king of the magical wolves. Alfred told Femi not to think about it because it is not only Femi's fault. Luca examines the wolf and asks if the boy really doesn't think it's a little strange. Alfred is also thinking about it. Cruz called Luca. The girl said that Alfred said that he ate Hydra meat in the past. That is, its meat itself is not toxic and it is not about the poison. Cruz agreed with the girl. Luca asked Cruz if the girl had forgotten that she had been poisoned. Cruz smiled and said that she had forgotten. Luca eventually found out that it was unlikely that the poison was on the meat and that it had caused the illnesses. If it's a wolf with a good nose, he'll notice it before he eats it. Femi says that's a given. Luca says that this Hydra was abnormal from the start. It is impossible to grow a head right away. She has never heard of such a thing. Luca asks Alfred if he can give her some Hydra bile. Alfred agrees and gives the girl some bile in a jar. Luca says that it is quite large at first glance. Cruz says that it is a very unpleasant aura. Alfred asks the girl what she means. Cruz replies that there is a strange energy around her and she doesn't like it. Alfred thinks that she sometimes scares him. Luca asks if she can take it to the royal lab so she can check it. Alfred agrees with the girl. Alfred says that Luca is a researcher of magical beasts, so she is some kind of genius. Then Millet interrupts them and apologizes to the boys for keeping them waiting. She says that the potion is a little bitter, but they should drink it to their health. The medicine is then poured into bowls and given to the wolves. Femi says the wolves seem to be doing much better. Luca says she drank all the medicine herself, but Cruz did not. Cruz says that is not the case. Millet said that she thinks that tomorrow all the wolves will be much better. Alfred agrees with the girl. Femi bows and says she appreciates it. Millet says no thanks. Alfred then says he'll look after the wolves with Femi tonight. Suddenly, Mufi starts to moo and the boy says that Mufi will also look after them. Luca says that she will study the bile and try to find out what is going on. Alfred says that he will leave it to the boy. Alfred then said that he was glad that everyone went to bed peacefully. Maybe Mufi had some kind of healing aura. Alfred then notices Femi licking one wolf after another. She seems very worried about them. Then Alfred puts out the candle in the lamp and thinks that Femi is the best king, which means that everything will be fine, and so everyone falls asleep. The next morning, the wolf cubs wake Alfred. The young man says that everything seems to be all right. He wishes all the wolves a good morning. He then looks into the distance and sees the adult wolves and says that he is very glad that they are all healthy. Femi approaches Alfred and thanks him for helping save her pack. She is very sorry that only Femi can't help. Alfred tells her not to think like it's over, so he suggests she go and have breakfast and then they will investigate the mystery of the Hydra. He smiles and says that they will solve this problem together with Femi. Femi says that this is Femi's chance to show that she is useful too. She calls the young man to go with him so that he will allow her to repay the debt. After some time, Femi, Alfred, Vivi, Cruz, and Luca came to the place where they killed the Hydra yesterday. Luca said she thought they would find the secret of the immortal Hydra here. Vivi said she felt no magic left. Alfred said it was strange. He had, of course, butchered it, burned it, and buried it, but now there was no trace of it left. It was very strange. Femi said it was all a bit confusing. Alfred asked Femi if she really understood anything. The wolf said she would try to track something down. Vivi then looked around the area and suddenly noticed something on the ground. She called Alfred and told him to look at the place she had found. The girl swept the ground with her foot and said that it was a hidden magic circle. The girl said that it was a huge magic circle and it made the monster very big. Alfred said that this was what was expected of Vivi. Vivi laughed slyly, but they were interrupted by Cruz's voice, calling out to Alfred and saying that she had discovered something. Alfred ran to Cruz. The girl said that there was a huge group of monsters and it was very bad. Then they ran to the place and were very surprised. Alfred didn't understand what it was because there was a whole group of monsters. Luca said that they were 3 times bigger than the Hydra, so she couldn't look at it. If even one of them got into the city, it would be destroyed. Femi said they couldn't let them leave the forest. Cruz grabbed her sword and said they would do it then. Alfred thought that the Hydra must have escaped from these monsters. He does not understand why someone would enlarge these creatures and where they came from. Cruz asked Alfred if she could attack. The young man agreed and told the girl not to overexert herself because he would cover her. Cruz agreed. Suddenly Cruz was attacked. A magician appeared who said that the girl dodged very well, but he was thinking how to lure her out, but the girl came herself, saving him a lot of energy. Alfred asked the stranger who he was and what he wanted from them. The man said he was not interested in people. He is interested in the girl who is one of the heavenly kings. He points to Vivi. The boy says that the girl requested her plan to restore the demon king's army, so she is a traitor. The man removes his hood and says that he is one of the 12 heavens and his name is Tis, the cleanser of filth. Vivi gets scared and then says that she doesn't know him. The girl asks Alfred if she knows him, to which the boy replies that he doesn't know anyone like that. Tis yelled and asked if Vivi was really making fun of him. The young man shouted that Vivi was the weakest of the 4 heavenly kings and what she was doing. She had ruined the dragon's invasion plan and he could not forgive her. Alfred realized that, in short, this guy, with the help of dark magic, created dragons. He says that even if so, what will the boy do, or demons just like to chat? The young man said that it seemed like the young man liked to talk, but it made no difference because they would all die here. Then the young man summoned his monsters. He orders them to kill everyone. Suddenly something resolves the monsters and Tis is very surprised. Suddenly Cruz appears behind him. Tis smiles and tells the girl not to do it. Cruz is very surprised. Suddenly the monster in the form of a huge snake used its keen eyesight and blinded Cruz. It was too bright. Tis said it was beautiful because no one could defend themselves from the basilisk's petrified eyes. Cruz said it was bright. The girl tears off a part of the snake and says that it is fine because it is not susceptible to such things. Tis is very surprised and asks why it did not work. Then Luca says it's time to finish. The basilisk tries to use its petrifying gaze, but it doesn't work. Luca ends up behind the monster. She jumps up and slashes at the monster. At that moment, Alfred uses his magic and explodes the body of the huge basilisk. At this moment, the huge monster runs straight at Alfred, but is covered by Femi, who cuts it down with her sharp claws. Alfred stretches out his hand again and burns the monster. Tis stands very surprised. He looks at his killed monsters. Tis asks the boy and says that they are like that. Alfred says that it doesn't matter, they are just passing S-rank adventurers. Tis takes his head in his hand and starts laughing. He then says that he thought he could do it quickly, but people got in his way. At this point, Cruz says, calling out to Alfred, that the monster's wounds are beginning to heal. Suddenly, Hydra began to recover. Tis laughs and says that humans are lucky because these monsters specialize in rapid regeneration. They are invulnerable zombie soldiers who will never fall. They can play all they want, but they're still going to die. Alfred thinks he's figured something out. The circle and the wolves ate the Hydra's flesh and got stomachaches. The reason was that he was turning into a zombie. Although these monsters are dead, they are still connected to this place and are controlled by one of the 12 heavens. Luca tells Alfred that they can fight forever, but her strength and magic power will eventually run out. At this point, Femi told Alfred that she could kill this demon. Alfred told the wolf that they could wait. Alfred says they will only kill the zombies because they need the demon alive. He will stand trial in the capital. Femi asked Alfred what they were going to do. Alfred tells the wolf to run to the center of all the monsters. Alfred then calls Tis and thanks him for telling him something. Tis looks at Alfred, who says that he is actually a little angry with him. However, he thinks that they can defeat this monster. At this time, Cruz screamed and asked Mr. Alfred what to do. Alfred says he's going to use his magic to make a splash, so he calls Luca and Cruz to help him. Luca said she agreed, but it was very difficult. Alfred said to have the girls cut off their heads. Cruz said it was easy. Tis was surprised, so Alfred said to have the girls keep cutting off heads. Tis quietly said that they had stopped, it was useless. At that moment, the young man stretched out his hand and summoned the Ice Queen, who reigned over the heavens and commanded the void. He asked her to open the gates of the void to the secret of the absolute world. He told Sky and Darkness that he would freeze the impure of this world with a heavenly hammer. The boy's name is Alfred Lint. Then a huge pillar of ice appeared in front of Alfred. All the monsters were frozen. Tis's legs were also frozen, so the boy said that he could not move. Suddenly, Alfred rides up to him and tells Tis that he's been caught. Tis falls to the ground and says that the boy is joking and whether he really is an S-rank adventurer. Such magical power could only belong to a real monster. Tis says he should have guessed. Vivi is the weakest of the 4 heavenly kings and she wouldn't be able to defeat the dragons, so the young man was the one who defeated them. Alfred said he was not alone. He then ties up Tis, but the boy says there is only one way out. He smirks and says that the traitors must be destroyed. Alfred is very surprised and immediately shouts for Vivi. At that moment, a huge hydra runs through the forest. Vivi smirks and says that she was waiting for her. The huge hydra attacks the girl, but Vivi was sitting next to a magic seal, which she immediately attacked. Plants immediately sprouted from the magical seal and bound the hydra. Vivi said that she would never be able to break these bonds. In an instant, these plants tore the hydra to shreds. Alfred turned to the young man and asked if he had anything else to say. The boy sat in the field where his created monsters were burned and frozen. Alfred told Vivi that she had created a great circle. Vivi said that the battle was left to Alfred and the others, but to be on the safe side, she created a magic circle that would completely stop the monster's movements. Alfred stroked the girl's head and said that he understood and it was a good decision. Vivi asked the boy to stop because it was embarrassing. Then Alfred smiles and says that the matter is settled and they can go back. At this moment, Femi is carrying Tis in her teeth. While Femi was carrying the demon in her mouth, Alfred told Cruz that her stomach hurt because she ate a zombie. Cruz asked if she couldn't eat that and what was bad about it. Luca said that they had to be completely deprived of their freedom to become zombies. That's why she puts all kinds of harmful magic on her body. This time the zombies were especially huge and had been reborn many times under the influence of various curses, so you can't eat this meat. Cruz said it was scary. Luca added that she would tell her one more thing. There are parasites that can turn you into a zombie, but there is magic that will rid the girl of them and Cruz will no longer have stomach pains. Then Cruz talks about parasites and zombies. Alfred thinks that the cure for millet might help, so Cruz needs to know about it. The young man talks about millet, but before he can finish speaking, Cruz takes off and runs towards millet. At this time, Millet was treating the wolves when suddenly Cruz bursts in and says that she is in pain and also reminds her about the insects. Millet asked Cruz to calm down. Millet added that everything was fine and she had a cure. Cruz said that she would be a zombie and could die. Then Millet saw the boys and greeted them. Alfred said that someone definitely won't eat weird things anymore. Cruz agreed with the boy. Millet walked up to Alfred and thanked him for his work, then asked if they were finished. Alfred pointed to Tis and told the girl that they were finished. At this point, Cruz and Luca were petting the wolves and said that they seemed to be in a good mood too. Luca said that it was because of Millet's medicine and the power of the holy beast Mufi. Vivi didn't understand what the girl was talking about. Luca replied that sometimes the spirit of the beast can cleanse the curse. Vivi was surprised and looked at Mufi, who was sitting next to the wolves and was all beaming. Vivi cried with joy and ran straight to Mufi to hug her. Alfred looked at the girls happily. Then he became serious and looked at Tis. The youth removed the bandage from his mouth. He said that the youth and his friends had summoned zombie dragons in the western mountains and they had failed. However, the young man asks that this time they have taken on the Hydra and the Basilisk. The young man asks if the demon really thinks that he can resurrect the king's army with a demon. Tis smirked and said that the Demon King would definitely be resurrected, and until then, people should live in fear. Alfred said mockingly that the Demon King will not be resurrected. At that moment, he realized that the boy did not want to talk. Alfred says that the technique of turning into zombies is imperfect and one Hydra is a major failure, and the parasites helped the young man create them. That is, he does not have the main power. Then Alfred called Vivi. The girl ran up to him. Alfred asks if there was a zombie expert in the Demon King's army. Vivi says that she doesn't think so because the Demon King forbade the sale of zombies. However, she was defeated by Alfred and the other adventurers, so she left the front early and does not know what happened after that. Tis said that the Demon Lord allowed zombies to use magic, so Vivi, one of the 4 heavenly kings, is very stupid. Alfred snaps his finger and calls Femi. Femi takes Tis in her teeth and starts shaking him. Eventually, they couldn't get any more information out of him and sent him to the capital. After a while, Millet prepared dinner. Luca said that they had a few words. They decided to leave the village the next morning. Tis must stand trial and she is glad to have met such kind people in this village. Millet threw herself into Luca's arms and began to cry. He told the girl that she would be lonely. Luca also started crying and told the girl not to do it. Cruz and Colette started to squirm on the floor and said they didn't want to leave. Alfred thought about how they were like children. Luca told Cruz that she had a lot of work in the capital. Cruz agreed with Luca. Alfred said that Cruz could come to them at any time. The girl asks if this is really true. Cruz agreed. At that point, Luca said that they would have to say goodbye to Millet's wonderful food, so they wanted to eat well today. Then came a happy evening. Everyone ate delicious food and enjoyed their time. Alfred suddenly noticed that Vivi and Cruz were whispering about something. The next morning, they began to say goodbye. The guys wished the girls a safe journey home. The girls thanked everyone and Luca told Alfred to take care of himself. Alfred agreed and then said that it was a secret that he was here. Then they leave. Alfred tells the girls it's time to work. Millet shouts that she's going to help the headman and Vivi is going to feed the cows. Alfred says he will do his job. Alfred sits down on a chair and says he will look after the girls, so he suggests they do their best today. The girls ask the young man to be careful with his knee, and they are counting on Alfred. The moment before Luca and Cruz met Alfred is recalled. The zombie dragons created by the Dark Mage may attack the capital. The S-rank adventurers Cruz and Luca rushed to prevent it. Luca called Cruz, but the girl said that they needed to take a break. Luca replied that it was a pity that she had not destroyed the Dark Mage's laboratory, so she was one step too late. She had to decide to finish everything at once. Suddenly, Luca was surprised as the zombie dragon ghosts disappeared. Luca said it was funny, as if someone had suddenly destroyed them. Cruz did not believe that the zombie dragons had been destroyed and said that she did not think it was that easy. Suddenly, Cruz sensed something and said that there was a sign of something bad. Luca asked if it could be zombie dragons. Cruz replied that it was not and that it could be a hydra. Luca was surprised and asked where it came from. Luca ran after Cruz, screaming that she couldn't do everything alone. Cruz ran very far away and Luca screamed that she was going to the village of Murg. After a while, Luca got tired. She didn't know that Cruz could run faster than a horse. Her physical abilities and her feelings didn't deserve to be compared to a gift from heaven. Then Luca realized that she didn't know where to go. She found the entrance to the village and wondered if the people here were good. Suddenly, the village chief approached her and asked if she was a traveler. The girl replied that she was an adventurer. Then the headman asked if the girl really came here alone. The village chief said that the girl was so beautiful and in such a light dress in such a remote area. Luca was surprised and thought that it was a little suspicious. She smiled and said that they had split up and she had come here for supplies. Then the girl was about to show the village elder the license, but suddenly she felt something. She shouted that she would step away for a minute. Luca felt a sudden increase in magical power and a suspicion that these were not zombie dragons. Luca saw a huge skeleton and it was very big. It might be a new kind of monster. Luca shouted to Vivi what she was doing there. Vivi answered to make Luca shut up. She would not forgive the girl if she interfered with Mufi's resurrection. Luca was surprised that she was creating undead. Suddenly, Luca said that Vivi was one of the 4 heavenly kings. Vivi was surprised that the girl knew her name. Luca added that she had not forgotten her face. Vivi smirked and said that even in a place like this, she would be recognized. She ordered the girl to kneel in front of her. Luca didn't listen to her and ran straight to the huge skeleton. Vivi asked what Luca was doing and she destroyed her magic circle. Luca thought that the zombie dragons were created by a demon, so someone was trying to restore the Demon King's army. Luca says she will destroy evil without hesitation. Vivi shouts that the evil is the girl herself. She activates the magic and orders her to disappear. Luca realizes that these are fire bullets, but they will never reach her. One of the bullets hit the girl's knee and she sat down on the ground. Vivi said that the girl still knelt down. Suddenly, a scream was heard about what was happening. The girls turned and saw Alfred's house burning. Ultimately, Luca and Vivi regretted it. Millet intervened and said that she thought they understood everything. Alfred said it was good that it was like that. The girls realized that Millet was so good. Things were quieter than usual in the village of Murg once Luca and Cruz left, leaving the village guard with nothing to do again. Alfred tells himself not to worry, the girls might come back. Then he thinks about how they were annoying, but sometimes it's not so bad to see them. His thoughts were interrupted by Vivi, who said that Alfred had been yawning for a long time. Alfred agreed. Vivi smiled and said that it couldn't be helped because defending the village was rather boring. The young man agreed. However, he thinks that Femi and Mufi are here. The village defenses are already quite strong. Soon he will not be needed here at all. In such a short time, they tried to revive an army of demons near the village with the help of dragons, hydras, and a basilisk. It's really scary that the villagers don't know about it. He has to show the village that he's actually useful. He turned his attention to Vivi and asked the girl what was going on there and what she was looking at. Vivi said about the field. The young man does not understand what the girl is talking about. Vivi says that the land in the village is spoiled. Alfred looks at the plants and says, agreeing with the girl, that it is not very fruitful. The young man asked the girl if she really understood what was happening just by looking at it. Vivi agreed and said that it was because of the magic ore seeping into the hot springs. Alfred asks if it is bad that the magic ore is mixed with the soil in the farmland. Vivi agrees and says that the Demon King's land's poverty also stems from the demon ore content in the soil. Alfred is happy and says that he heard that Vivi was doing land reclamation. Vivi agrees. Alfred starts to beam and says that this is expected of the 4 heavenly kings, so he is counting on the girl. Vivi is embarrassed. Alfred thinks about farming and says that he has no personal experience, so Vivi will be useful here. The girl grabs his hand and agrees. Vivi says that she is going to cleanse the land here. The boy asks what the girl is talking about. Alfred asks why so suddenly. Vivi says that Alfred was bored doing his job as a security guard. Alfred says that's true. Vivi says that it's Vivi's responsibility to improve the farmland. She says that with their own hands they will make the richest farm and it will be a lot of fun. The young man thinks that Vivi looks inspired. Alfred agrees and says that they will clean everything here. He will be happy to eat tasty vegetables and the inhabitants will feel better. Alfred says that first of all, permission from the village chief is needed. Vivi runs off and says that she will get it. The boy then turns to Femi and asks if he can cut down some of the forest. Femi barks affirmatively and the village chief at this time gives Vivi his consent. After a while, Vivi says briefly that they will clear the area and use magic circles to cleanse the land. They will easily clean everything here. Alfred says that Millet and the others will help. Millet says that it looks funny and the mayor also supports it. The girl adds that it is very good that they decided to support rural residents with agriculture. Femi says that she, as the king of the magical wolves, will help them dig holes for the vegetables. Alfred thinks that it looks like the wolf wants to dig a hole. He gives the girl permission. Vivi is silent for a moment and then says that Mufi should join them too. Alfred said that Mufi is too big to work with them. Vivi replies that Mufi is a spirit beast. She is sure that Mufi can become smaller. If Femi can go, then why can't Mufi? Femi starts growling and Vivi hides behind Alfred and tells Femi not to come near her. Then Mufi comes up to them. The boy speaks, asking her if Mufi can become smaller. Mufi makes a sound. Alfred is surprised that she answered. Alfred asked Vivi if she understood her. Vivi said that Mufi was saying that he could become smaller. Femi replies that Mufi said he wants the girl to touch him, and Mufi doesn't understand human language. Alfred says that there is nothing to be done and they will take Mufi another time. Mufi has turned into a spirit beast and maybe later Vivi will figure out how to make her smaller. Millet suggested that the boys do everything they can for Mufi. Vivi pets Mufi and says that she is very sorry, but Mufi should watch over them from here. Then Vivi goes to Alfred and Millet and suggests they start working. Alfred agrees, but first they need to shut everything down. Vivi agrees. He tells the girl to leave it to him because he will handle it in a jiffy. Vivi shouted at the young man not to hurry. She said that logging was a delicate process and Alfred should not overdo it. The boy apologized to the girl. Millet told them to proceed gradually. Millet said she would help. Vivi said they would take a break if they got tired. Alfred doesn't understand what the girls are talking about. He asks if the girls really treat him like an old man, so there is no need to worry so much because she is not a newbie and can handle it. Millet says that it is not so. She takes his hand and says that she is worried about the boy's knee. Alfred is very surprised. He didn't think Millet cared so much about her body and he appreciates it, but it's embarrassing. He thanks Millet for her concern and will do as much as he can. Vivi shows the boy and tells him to try cutting down trees in this place, so she asks if the boy can do it. Alfred agrees. Vivi says that the boy can begin then. Alfred thinks that a little magic power will suffice. Then he cuts down the tree. Suddenly the tree started falling right on the girls. Alfred managed to grab Millet and asked the girl if she was okay. Millet thanked the boy and said she was fine. Alfred thought his knee was a little sore because of it, so it was kind of awkward. Then Vivi screamed and said that she thought something like this would happen. She told the boy to be careful. Alfred thought that her experience in farming was not so good, but a start had been made.